to the Hawks Nest live stream show. My name is Brandon Kane, coming at you here on a Thursday afternoon in a bye week. And my fellow Seahawk fans, it doesn't quite get as good as this outside of having, let's say, maybe the number one seed in the NFC, but you get to roll into your bye week mid-year. Perfect time is what the players tell us. You don't want a little too early, don't want a little bit too late to throw off any kind of momentum you're trying to create. We find ourselves in that position. You're not decimated by injuries. In fact, we're getting one back, Trey Brown, a player who played at a very fine level last year in his rookie year on the outside of the cornerback position. The schedule is not stacking up very tough for us. And so many of you may look at my thumbnail and my title on this video and think that this is about the future that is paved towards the Lombardi and gold this next year or the year after, when in fact, no, I'm talking about both the here and now and into the future. I know I'm a dreamer. I know I go John Lennon with it a little bit, But as I like to say, I'm not the only one. And that certainly feels the case to me in this, as I look at the circumstances here, as far as quickly just looking at this year at hand, because I think all of us acknowledge this has been a bonus year, a miraculous year, a year no one saw coming, and it has been wondrous, to say the least. It has been, I think, as far as you could say, a best case scenario. So why not increase my best case scenario for this given year? And as I look ahead on the schedule, only 3 of your remaining opponents are 500 or better. Okay, well, that means it's not too daunting. The Rams seem to be having their share of issues they got to deal with, which is, of course, a big part of those other two games we got to play of a team that's, theoretically bad this year, but are they? Are they going to end out in that same state? But they are still heading in that direction. There's nothing that's been necessarily showing you the Rams are going to suddenly turn this around, as evidenced by the fact just recently Cooper Kupp's gone on the IR for them with a high ankle sprain, which is, even though one you can come back from 4 to 6 weeks, I say relatively quickly, not one that you're going to necessarily bounce back from phenomenally with the back end of the schedule so short as it is. We having a remaining 7 games left here to go. So you've got things set up really nicely even for you during this year. I showed this stat a couple of weeks ago, and it's obviously a stat that's built around the last 8 games of the year, or what used to be the back half of the schedule. But in games in which Coach Carroll has coached from 2015 onwards in the back half of the schedule, that is the last 8 games of each NFL season since 2015. You can see over my right shoulder, here is his win-loss record, or his team's win-loss record over that track of time. Some of those seasons you were pretty good. Some of those seasons you were just all right, a little bit in between. So you look at that and you go, that's not bad as far as a win-loss record. That's about a .630 win-loss record, .630 winning percentage. But if you go back even further on this, even if you go back to 2011, if we go back a solid now 11 years of real strong data on this, so that it's not just me even trying to sample size this, which I think this is just trying to show you currently, it goes even further, where he's pushing almost a 700 winning percentage when you look at him over the track since 2011. And my point on this is that something I would reckon to guess, there is something in the way Coach Carroll runs his team and sets up his team and manages his team even from the beginning of training camp onwards to set the stage for this. I also have said that I long believe his approach to injuries, for instance, is what helps this out, where they do tend to be a very conservative team when they have injuries. They don't rush guys back on the field too fast most of the time. And that is, I think, one of the benefits you get of being at your best at the end of the years. So when you look at, again, this year being paved in gold, even for this year, notice Carroll's record in the past. Notice how he's had teams prepared. Notice how many seasons we've seen him with teams playing at their best at the end of the year, not the beginning, but at the end of the season. And I think this team definitely is showing you certain little hallmarks of that, even in their play here early on, as to where they can go. You have a team that defensively definitely fell back just a little bit last week, but it's all right if you can say my team falls back defensively and they only give up 21 points. Likewise, you say about Geno Smith, some are saying, well, he fell back to earth last week. Well, my guy nearly throws for 300 yards. It speaks to maybe that we've been so over the moon with these guys' performance recently that even if they have just a little dip in that, then it becomes such a downward performance. These teams, but they can bounce forward to what they've been reasonably in that, especially that 4-game winning streak. I'm not expecting the defense to be the first in the the NFL. I do think Geno Smith and his performance is going to continue to be sustainable. I think we're going to be able to run the ball. Not everybody's got the personnel like Tampa Bay Buccaneers do to have to stop our running game. Football is a game of matchups, and you ran into that just a little bit in this last week. You're not going to play in the bad field conditions or 6:30 a.m. Again, the schedule sets up very nicely with you as far as how these teams look. Season's still well at hand. So as we go into this bye, I hope some of you, even though we are getting excited for the future and where these picks are going to be at and what we're going to have to spend money-wise, we also keep in mind that we still have this year at hand. That San Francisco 49er game, which I believe is on Thursday Night Football, is going to determine a lot towards where we potentially could go this year, because it would be nice to have at least the opening game of the playoffs, at least one game at home. But things do stack up nicely in that respect for you this year. It's a bonus year. Let's go for it. We got nothing to lose. And again, I'm not just saying this is a wing and a prayer stuff. This is also backed up by Coach Carroll and his history here in Seattle, even going back to years like, let's say, 2011, which I included in the data, which was not a year you were necessarily a great team. But he got that team playing at its best at the end of the year. That's right. Now, this is mainly with this pathway back to the Lombardi viewpoint of things is really built around, of course, what we have going on into the future, what we have right now in our midst, and then what we're going to be able to bring on board into this offseason to really inject this forward. The really key determination on all this as it goes forward, which is interesting here to me, is not going to be what players you pick where in the draft to address what needs of position. The needs, as we will see on this, are going to be fairly few going forward. It's going to be about really what you do at the quarterback position. And this is going to be, I'm sure, where the fierce debate is going to break out between Seahawks fans here over the next couple months as to whether or not to sign Geno and then how much to spend and what is the line on spending too much on Geno. Because if you do take the Geno route and you go that way with it, you can see very clearly now of how they can construct this Super Bowl-wise if they buy into the fact that Geno is a Super Bowl potential quarterback, if you give him that roster that is capable of doing so. And again, I'm not throwing away this year necessarily as well, but as I was looking forward a little bit, this is why we're in the bye, looking at things as we kind of look just a tiny bit forward. 2023, you're due to have $46 million of cap space this offseason. You can save an additional $3 million if you move on from Quentin Jefferson. I didn't see a whole hell of a lot of players that look like you would want to move on from outside of that, nor were there guys even that maybe if you wanted to move on from him, it would make sense because of the dead cap money. He's really just about it. Poona Ford's going to be a free agent. Austin Blythe, Geno Smith, Rashad Penny, Drew Lock, Phil Haynes, Ryan Neal, Travis Homer, and Marquise Goodwin. No real notable free agents there that are going to be huge outside of the Geno Smith one, right? None of these guys that you lose. Certainly Ryan Neal has been a fine player, and I would love to bring him back. And if they could put him on a contract, that would be all right with me, though they do have a lot of money put into the safety position. So there is an argument to be made that you can't afford to put a third decent-sized deal into that safety position as it stands right now. Nonetheless, there's no free agents you necessarily have to worry about really breaking the bank on you as you stand for that $46 million outside of course, if you want to go do something with Geno Smith, that would be the caveat that I would apply. The 2024 season, by the way, for those interested as well. Now, the cap's due to go up very high through this point. There's a lot of teams that have a ton of cap space at that point because we're talking 2 years out. But Seattle also does stand as it looks for 2024 with that's a 100, and $45 million in cap space. And that would only be the seventh most amount. But again, the next two seasons, you're set up to have the top 10 most amount of cap space in the NFL as it's set up to go along with those draft picks, to go along with the development of the young players. This is, I think we got to put this all kind of into the bowl to really get it all into perspective a little bit. Tariq Woolen, Abraham Lucas, Charles Cross, Mike Jackson, Kenneth Walker, Boye Mafe, Trey Brown, they're all due to be on rookie deals for the next couple of years. So you're not needing to make any decisions on those guys or contract extensions on those guys. They're not going to affect this money, at least over the next couple of years, directly, right? All the rookies got to wait 3 years until they can actually go out and get the contract extension. You also feel good with certain guys you have on multi-year deals like Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Uchenna Nwosu, Will Disley, Noah Fant, Colby Parkinson, Jordan Brooks, Quandre Diggs, and Damian Lewis. All of those guys, you feel pretty good about their contractual status and where they are going forward. They're helpful players in their own way and what they apply here. Whether or not you want to put a guy like Damian Lewis or Jordan Brooks on a contract extension, that's another debate for another time. You do have them under club control now and into the future. So we've got the young cats on the rookie deals, the other guys that's a mix of young cats and other guys that have been paid but are on deals that you feel okay about. That's your base and your core here going forward. And that alone is a hell of a core and a hell of a base. I got my book in tackles, game changers at the wide receiver position, a couple of different tight ends. There's certainly more you can add into this area of things, but as we've seen this year, this is one of the reasons that you stand in first place, is based on how this personnel is and how good they are. And they'll be getting better. Don't forget what those young guys, as Coach Carroll has said, the rookie guys or NFL players in general, let's just throw rookies out. NFL players in general, when Carroll's been asked about this a couple times, and his answer has never wavered on this, and I truly believe it when he says this, and that is that players take their biggest leap from year 1 to year 2. And so you should be seeing on some of these rookies this year, six rookies you're basically starting this year, them take that huge leap as you move into next year. Again, just helping to put an extra little golden brick into that road as we build this to get forward to that potential position of Lombardi trophy. The big part that, of course, you guys, I'm sure, are salivating at, as I have been salivating at, as we watch this Denver Bronco team fall throughout the course of this year and that draft pick get tastier and tastier. And I see the saliva coming down the corners of your mouth. I can see you Seahawks fans on Twitter with it. I can literally see it in your posts thirsting away at these picks, just wondering what could be. Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, the names they're throwing out, I'll tell you, I love it. Don't get me wrong. Keep it going. I love that energy. I love my Hawk fans out there talking about this, considering this, contemplating this is what, for instance, this channel's all about, just considering all the angles of what we could do with that selection. And though you do sit, technically speaking, 7th, with the 7th overall selection in the first round, and do not forget, Seahawks fans, that's the 7th selection overall in the second round as well, probably, or somewhere close to that. But there is a very close level of position between the teams from 2 to 7. Right now you have 10 teams, or not 10 teams, let me see here. You've got 8 teams that have 3 wins, all bunched together. Denver, they go into this next week. I believe the Broncos do, play the Raiders, if I'm not mistaken. And if the Raiders end up beating them, that flips them with the Raiders, and you're ending up with the top 3 potential pick there. And if you're able to bring that kind of pick in to this team into next year, and then remember that second round pick as well, not to mention what you could do with that 2 second round picks and that first round pick if you wanted to get real with it. I'm talking about trading up. I know Schneider hasn't done it. I know he's never done it, but he's looking at adding those kind of 2 prime talents at that point. I mean, it gives you ultimate flexibility, frankly, in any which way you'd want to go. You could trade back and maybe get another first round pick, or a couple first round picks. We've seen teams make some crazy picks for those top 5 selections in the past. Again, another brick to put down in the road. These are going to be highly impactful players you bring in, and outside of having a Chris McIntosh situation like the Seahawks had back some 25 years ago where they took a first round pick and he just never played, these guys should be able to add again to what this group's giving you already out the gate. And as you already stand right now in first place, and as you're already look to your cap situation being improved, and you look to not having a lot of dead money that you're going to be sitting upon, you've got some wild card guys, by the way, on this, with guys like Eskridge or Jamal Adams, who, though they've been out of it and they haven't given you a lot of production up until this point, are still theoretically highly talented players who also can add to this, and already the cost is basically sunk in. It's already baked into the cake, essentially, as far as the cap situation is concerned. I know we wring our hands with Adams, for instance, on that one, but it is worth mentioning on that those aren't going to be increased or lowered by what you do with Adams. You just essentially you still have all of that cap room to move that off. I looked this up a couple of weeks ago and presented this as well. If you are sitting with the 7th overall selection, if you look over my shoulder, you can see this. If you are sitting with the 7th overall selection in the first round, going back since 2016, you have come out with a good player. And I'll go through the names here, where you had 2016 DeForest Buckner. It's been pretty good. Great with 49ers, and then traded for a first-round pick. Mike Williams, who's for the Chargers. He's right behind Keenan Allen, is one of the most important players. He was making some grabs on Tariq Woolen earlier just this year. Josh Allen with the Bills. I certainly don't have to tell you guys about him. Josh Allen with the Jaguars. And though he's not been a highly impactful player, he's been a productive player with the Jaguars since he's come along there in 2019. 2020, you had Derek Brown with the Carolina Panthers. He's not been necessarily, I think, the impact defensive tackle they thought they were getting in the top 10, but nonetheless, he has been a good player for them. He has not been a bust. And then 2021, Penny Sewell, who has been very good for the Detroit Lions, even though they're playing him out of position at right tackle to begin his career. Ryan Neal was playing okay football before he went down to his injury. He was playing pretty solidly, looking good as you were going to go into the future there for the Giants. My point on this is that if you look at those picks, we're told about the NFL there being this high fluctuation with these first-round picks and that it's very hard to tell who's going to be good, who's going to be bad, where guys are really going to land with their NFL career. And there is some of that still that does exist. I do believe, though, that NFL teams are getting better at isolating, especially the top crop, those guys that are in tier 1. Look at our own general manager, John Schneider, for proof of this. John Schneider has only picked in the top 15 4 times. 4 times as a general manager in Seattle, now going on well over a decade. Only 4. Not a lot of swings there. But in those 4 selections every single time, and he's just done it again here with Charles Cross, he's found a good to great player. And so as you can see with this list, as you can see with the track record of John Schneider on this, pair that together, and the optimism for these picks is not merely having the picks themselves, but the fact that your general manager understands how to identify true blue chip talent when he's in the position to go actually pick them. He doesn't like to trade up. He doesn't like to package his picks in that way. But if he happens to be selecting there naturally, organically, he does a hell of a job with it. So the players he adds to what you have here with that draft, with that cap space, that is your pathway as we see now halfway into this year. And it may seem like I'm saying something right now that seems clear to you guys. Like, yeah, everybody understood this was how this was going to be. You know, we're definitely now on a Super Bowl road. But let's not forget, we came from an off season here where we were watching a Hall of Fame quarterback be moved, a middle linebacker being shuttled out the door without even getting a phone call. We've got questions about coach. We got questions about general manager. We got questions about drafting approach, questions about how they spend their money. And now as we land basically halfway into a given year, they've answered the call on all of those questions. And I'm not a guy to usually quickly reverse back or change over to a spot to say, well, this is that you show me enough. But the evidence here for what they've done this year with the trade of Russell Wilson and what they ended up getting out of that trade and how they pulled that trade off, because that was not simply just a deal that came down the track and was handed to you. That was a deal that you had to manufacture and make happen. You had to first pass on the Chicago Bears offer from the prior year to then wait the year to get the better offer from the Denver Broncos when you had less money that you were going to have to eat in the dead cap, along with the better players that you were going to get in the deal versus what the Bears were going to give you. So they've changed all those ways through that. Carroll's shown, even though he still sometimes gravitates back to these weird 4-man fronts, there's still been enough of the 3-4 implementation that you know that they're going to be able to do it right as they go into the future, especially once they get actually the true blue personnel that they need to make the scheme happen, which is going to be helpful in the respective, you have the draft picks to bring in the true bluers to make the scheme then happen. Offensively, outside of Waldron getting pilfered as a head coach, he certainly looks like one of the bright up-and-coming minds here as an offensive coordinator in this league. I love the work the offensive line coach has done with these linemen. Damian Lewis is performing at his best football out of position at the left guard position. And that's a testament, I think, to Dickerson, our offensive line coach, and the work that he's doing out of there. He's done some similar stuff, I feel like, with a guy like Phil Haynes, getting him playing his best ball, a tip of the cap to him, and hopefully we can keep these guys as a core on the coaching staff as we go forward. Say nothing even of like a guy like Sean Desai, who's brought in as sort of that secondary guru, and your secondary has played overall pretty good football, especially once Ryan Neal got put into the lineup, everything really got settled down. But certainly he's got those corners playing well along with Coach Carroll. And I just want to say I'm stoked for this future. I hope you're not just excited for this future, but you can see the plan and where this is going and what they've put in the role. And again, understand that though we may have arrived here and it's been a short couple of months, but you've arrived here from a place where a lot of people were saying in this offseason, not only just speaking about our roster being one of the worst in football, but talking about the Seahawks going back into a dark age of football. I had people speak on my chat about, get ready for 90s football again. Get ready for the years of like Ken Behring. That's where we're headed. And that's what we were told. Yet now we find ourselves truly being able to look towards that future that looks well within hand, does not look like just empty daydreaming by a biased fan. I can lay down the case, and I think I can lay it down pretty well, that you are one of the teams, and maybe a handful of collections in the team in the league, that have the brightest future as we go forward, that are set up best for that future success. Again, a lot of this is going to come down to the quarterback position and what they decide to do with that, of course. because getting that wrong or going the wrong way in that direction can upend this as well. But that also comes back to understanding if you've built the super team up around whoever you bring in here, they're going to have a high chance for success. Just one of the reasons this blueprint is working and probably will continue to work as we've seen it once work in the past. Thank you guys for jumping on in here to the chat. I really do appreciate you. We're going to have some Thursday night football going here. So I figured we'd watch a little bit of that and chill and just discuss a little bit of Seahawks bye week chat. So we're going to kind of keep this open up and, free and easy, so to speak. Nothing too serious as far as any kind of discussion goes here today, but it's kind of going to talk whatever but you guys want to talk about. Probably not going to go like a 4 or 5 hour show here tonight. So it's going to be just kind of a quick in and outer kind of thing here as far as how we do this. But we can kind of go anywhere you guys want to go with the discussion. I appreciate you guys jumping in. We are now, I think, a mere 80 away from 10,000 subscribers. So I don't think we'll necessarily get quite there tonight, but if you're not a subscriber, please do get up and subscribe to the channel, as I really do appreciate it. And we're getting very, very close to that mark. It'd be really cool to be able to hit that here before we get out of the end of November. As February is the year mark on the channel. So if we can hit that spot and get well over 10, we can really see where our growth is this year and get really close to almost doubling the channel's growth this year. So thank you to all the new subscribers, all the new folks that jumped aboard here on the channel. It's really well appreciated, and we're going to keep expanding this as we go forward. Matthias 23451, what's up, man? How you doing? It's good to see you. This is top 3 draft picks you'd want if we get a top 5 pick from Denver. I do think I'm starting to potentially lean a little bit closer towards thinking I want to maybe go with Jalen Carter over Will Anderson. I know Will Anderson's being talked about as the generational guy. I'm got to do a deep dive on Will to get my full feel for this, but he's a guy that I'm just not quite as sure about. I think he's maybe been given that a little bit early, and I think that Carter has the potential of being a little bit more of a safer prospect for something that's more of a need on the team. And so I might start drifting to them as him as a number 1. And I'm going to stay realistic as I can on this, Matthias. So I'm going to try not to go too overboard in looking at somebody that's not going to be within our range, which I think it does probably. Denver does get, maybe they'll carve a win or 2 out probably one way or another to get out of that top 3 realm, though I'm going to still dream. But I would go with Miles Murphy as another guy I would look at there. And then how about I'm forgetting his name, but there's a corner out of Georgia who runs like a 4-2. Georgia runs a lot of zone-based principles out there. He's also big, fits to the prototype of what we look for. I'm really sort of starting to get into this thought process of what if you can really put a lockdown guy aside Tariq. Now I know Mike Jackson's playing great, and I'm not trying to necessarily kick Mike Jackson out of the lineup, but if you have a chance to add a guy that's almost an equivalent like talent to Tariq over on the other side, you could really, I think you could really maybe do some things there with it. So I'm kind of looking more in that direction of things. I'll give you those, my initial 3 guys right there. Megan Gok Roger, thank you to my lady from Danenda for the $20 donation. Good to see you in the chat. Says, greetings BN12s. Finally got the new laptop, and while I'm not feeling 100% well due to COVID, but spending the day with my favorite people does help. Well, that is good to hear, Megan. I'm glad to hear you are recovering on that. It's always dicey or touch and go when anyone gets that thing, because it can go up and down and get good and then go bad, and it's got a fluctuating kind of state to it, doesn't it? But thank you for the $20 donation, and glad you got that new laptop. No coffee on it now, and I say that as a man who constantly spills. I constantly spill on my keyboard all the time. So I'm one to talk on that one. You know what I mean? I am one to talk. Joe K, yo, go Hawks Nest. What's up, Joe K? Tobias Larson, how you doing, Tobias? Says, let's get to that 10K today. You deserve it, brother. Keep up the good work. # go Hawks. Wow. If we can get there, that'd be great. If we got there today, that'd be amazing. But we're probably going to be too short a show today because we're going to run a couple hours here, but it'll be kind of an in and outer a little bit compared to my normal self. We'll be back on Sunday though too as well. Matthias says, how do you think we finish each game for the rest of the season? With a W. So I would say the way you're going to see the rest of this year go is I think Vegas is going to come in next week, and I think we're going to handle Vegas. They're currently 0-5 on the road. So, I don't think them coming into our house 0-5 on the road this year. They've got their quarterback crying in press conferences, their owner freaking out. I think that's probably a game we win. At Los Angeles, I'm going to put that down as a win right now. You're catching them without Cooper Kupp, who has been a guy who's really, really, really given us a hard time. The rest of the receiving core isn't as good. The defense just has been pretty solid still overall this year, but offensively, it's not been it. You've got Stafford in concussion protocols, and maybe he bounces back by that point, but they do feel like a team that's starting to really kind of fall back a bit. We'll see where that game goes. So I'll have that as a W2. At home against Carolina, I'm going to put that as a win. Thursday night, San Francisco at home. Ooh. I'm going to actually say that's going to be the surprise one on our schedule. And then that Seattle goes back-to-back losses right there. So they lose to San Francisco, and then they go out to Kansas City, and they lose again in Kansas City. But then they win at home against New York, and they win at home against the Rams to finish the year. So the final point of their schedule would be then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They'd be 5-2, and then that puts you at 11-5. Or that would put you at sorry, my math's bad. Well, 11-6. So does that win you the division at that point, or does San Francisco get to 12 wins? I'm not sure. I'd like to think that we'd be able to beat San Francisco on Thursday night. It's going to be hard to tell. It is tougher on teams that have to travel for those Thursday night games that are the shorter weeks. So there is a little bit of an advantage to us in that particular game. But it just somewhere on that schedule, it feels like maybe you could put one on the Rams and we win that Niner game. But it does feel like to me we can get 5-2 or at least to 4 wins to me. At least to 4 wins. And I was telling you guys about that Coach Carroll stat again. Since 2011, Coach Carroll in games that are on the back half of the schedule, that is 8 games into the back half, through 11 years of data, basically, he has 61-28. 61-28. That's a 690 winning percentage. And so if the Seahawks just go 4-3 over the back 7 games of this schedule, that's a 590 winning percentage. That's him. That would be him. If he just wins one more game than he loses, that'd be him going below what his normal expectations are as a standard that's been created over a decade of time. So there's a lot of reason to believe that the 4-win mark is certainly within your grasp, and even getting into that extra 5th win, if not beyond, is also there readily at hand. So I'm going to go there. I'm going to be confident. I'm dreaming this week, folks. It's bye week first place Hawk time. I get a dream. I get to dream big. Amari Taylor, do you think we will draft a quarterback in 2024? Holy mackerel, 2024. I think we're drafting a quarterback, Amari, this year. I don't think that we're going to probably draft him in the first 2 rounds, but I do think we draft a quarterback probably in the 3rd round, in fact, Amari. Do we draft a quarterback in the 1st round in 2020? Probably pretty hard to predict that out, because that's 2 drafts away. Say nothing of how the class will, I don't know how the class will look, Amari, and I don't know where we'll be picking necessarily. And if we're picking probably Amari, I would say no. I'm going to give you an answer because I don't like to sit on the fence. I'll tell you no. And the reason I'll say no is because you'll have already set your quarterback up for whoever you want it to be by that point into the future. And that the team will be in too good of a position to pick a quarterback high. And if they are a team that's a playoff team that's missing a quarterback, they're going to look for other inroads to make that happen, probably via a trade, I would say. Because they know they're not going to get him in the back half of a 1st round if that's where they're selecting from. So I'll go no. Consumer says Brams will put Kupp on ice till next year. I have to think that's going to be the case here, Consumer. They're going to leave the door cracked open just a hair in case they do start to make a run here offensively and they can get this turned around by the end of the year. But if it's getting close to the end of the year and they're still in the same state they've been so far this year, then he's definitely going to be shut down on some of those key games at the end of the season. And it just so happens one of those key games at the end of the season is the final game of the year at Seattle. So no Cooper Kupp Rams. It's a big difference in the type of team that you're facing versus Cooper Kupp out there. He has been definitely a guy who is, it's a little bit like I get the feeling like he's a little mad at us because he's an Eastern Washington kid. And he's like, you didn't pick me? All right, well, I'll show you. I feel like we're going to get a 30 for 30 20 years from now. And Kupp will be like, that's when the Seahawks scout came up to me and he said, you're just not an NFL player. And I said at that moment, I'm going to beat your ass my whole career. I mean, I don't know. That's how I picture it going, at least. You know, some actor doing a narration over the top. Cameron Robinson says, I'm hearing Ndamukong Suh is available. Is that correct? If so, that would have some tasty sprinkles to our defensive line. Unfortunately, Ndamukong Suh got picked up by the Philadelphia Eagles, Cameron. So the rich get richer, huh? Rich just always keep getting richer, don't they? These guys just keep picking up guys like, hey, Robert Quinn, okay, we'll take that. Ndamukong Suh, sure. And, you know, we'll just, we're not going to lean on them too much. We know they're aging players, so we're going to put them in on just these nice rotational bases. Good luck. Eagles are setting a stage, and they're going forward in a nice way that you like to see. You know, they're going to put these guys in good positions to be successful here. It's going to get tough. It's going to get a little tough. We're going to need to strap in just a tiny, tiny bit. Jonathan Luke with 11-5. Sam the Great also echoing where John's at. He's seeing 2 losses as well. So I love the optimism. Guys, I'm right. We're all along the same path here. I can see it as well in this schedule. You know, it does not set out to be that difficult for us to pull that off. Knowing the track record, knowing what opponents you got to face, knowing your health situation, knowing how well they played up until this point this year. Even in games that you've lost, you haven't been blown out really, but the 49er game, second game of the season. Sajin, how's it going, man? It's good to see you. Dara, hello. Says, as a coach, if things aren't working in the first half, don't you need to change the plan in the second half? Also, I think they go after Myles Gaskin next year. Well, thank you, Dara, for the question. Myles wouldn't be a bad player. And Dara, if you're going to let Travis Homer go in free agency, which may be very, very well a possibility if he's going to potentially get paid by somebody to be a third down back somewhere, Myles Gaskin might be then an option to go look at as an alternative. Yeah, I mean, as a coach, you can theoretically change what you're doing in the second half. I've heard from players, Dara, that the second half adjustment thing is a little overrated. You know, you get in the locker room, everybody basically gets to the bathroom and gets something to drink, and they're basically need to get back out on the football field. I know we've got a lot of those Al Pacino speeches. You're gonna fight. You're gonna fight every day. You're gonna give all you got. You know, yes, that sounds good that the coaches do that in movies, but I don't know that there's a lot of that or really a lot of this is what we're going to do instead of that. I think a tiny bit, but you can very well as make those adjustments into a second quarter is what I'm saying, Dara, or you know, into any point in time in the game. If I was to apply it to this past game, I would say it looked to me pretty clearly, especially looking at the all 22 footage, that after about the first 3 runs, you were going to notice the fact that one of 2 things was happening here. Either A, the Buccaneers were putting too many resources to stopping the run, or B, you weren't going to be able to create the holes against the Buccaneers you would need to be effective in running the ball. And then they sort of stuck with that. So is that an adjustment that you then have to wait to halftime to make, or could you just have made that on the fly and said, you know what, let's put this on Geno's back and let's roll this way instead? Amari, do you think we'll draft a quarterback in the late round? I think we'll draft in the 3rd round, Amari. 3rd or 4th round this year, I think, is where we're gonna target a quarterback, because I think you'll get a kind of a project-like guy there that could be very enticing. Larry Williams, how you doing, man? Sam Z, pot calling the barrel black. Barrel black? 10 million. Oh, Sam Z, how much will the Phil Haynes cost us? 10 million? He'd sign like a 3-year, $18-20 million deal probably if he gets something out there, if that's an available market. I'm still not sure that he's going to get that as an offer. He's still not even at this point consistently out there as a starting player on a normal basis. He's still splitting snaps. Maybe you can get him back on a low deal. Maybe if there's not a team out there that sees him on a high end, you could pull him in at like a 2-year, $8 million deal thing or something like that. Get him for a couple million more than the Vetman. And that wouldn't be a bad option if you look at him as a swing guard and you're looking at going and getting a true another right guard out there, or a competition for him at right guard as a young player, and then let them duke it out. It's not the worst of propositions if they want to do that. And as well, especially if you sign Geno Smith, in the way you could approach this offseason at that point is that you play a little more of the compensatory game. Because Penny might get himself a couple million. Blythe might get himself a couple million. Puna might get signed by a true 4-3 team. Neal might get signed somewhere. Homer could get signed somewhere. You know, even Drew Lock might be able to sign a deal somewhere at that point. Not talking big deal, but even if Drew Lock went out and signed a backup quarterback deal at 3 years, $24 million or something, like that's going to bring you back a compensatory pick at that point. Larry says, this is how we do our first 4 picks: defensive tackle, center, middle linebacker, and tight end. I like all those, Larry. The fourth one's going to throw me off a little bit because with tight end, you have Fant and Disley under club control for next year. You have all 3 of your tight ends right now under club control moving on into next year. It's going to be very hard to hold 4 active tight ends on the roster. I've had some discussions with Brendan Nelson about this. It's very difficult to pull that off. It's easier said than done sort of situation. Because you're having to pull from another position that you might get into a desperate state in a given game if there is an injury or two that stack up. So I get where the thinking is that you want to keep that position rich for the 3 tight end sets. Maybe it is a way to go, Larry, because this team is operating with so much of that 3 tight end set, unlike other teams. So it becomes more of a need in that capacity. But then you do have to find the position you're going to then choose to go one lighter on than you'd normally go, be it one less receiver or one less active running back on given game day. That's a little bit of how that has to then flip up. I wish the NFL would just expand the rosters because there wouldn't have to be such a question on this, but that is a little bit of the part. But as you saw with my, selection of a couple of the guys on the top of my list at the top 7 being Myles Murphy or Jalen Carter, those aren't necessarily just pure defensive tackles per se, but so along those lines, we're looking at the same thing on that. And certainly a center is definitely a need here. We need to get a guy in here, an all-around guy that's a talent who can move. It's so helpful having a guy steady there. I think Austin's done a decent job this year, Blythe, in being a good veteran presence center that you'd hope he'd bring in. And he's been very good in pass protection, I think. It's just the run blocking game where he really does have his share of struggles in. Truffle says Kyle Lewis just got traded to the Diamondbacks. Well, that's tough to see. But once you went out and made that deal for Tescar Hernandez, that was going to be probably the death knell for Kyle Lewis or Jared Kelnick or them both. And, Lewis just couldn't quite get back right. I watching him this year swing the bat just didn't look like he was in the same kind of place as a player. And maybe it is just his knees are in that place. It's understandable if it is, but, you just go, it's tough. It's tough. Hopefully he can bounce back with them. I didn't see what we got, though. Hopefully we got something back. Dan W. says Broncos are down to 3rd string right tackle, center, 2nd string left tackle. If they lost out and gave us the number 1 overall pick, what is your dream scenario with the pick? Draft there, trade down, or what? Hoo-wee. All right, I'll give you what I'd probably do, Daniel. But if I was really wanting to be risky, I'd tell you what I'd really like to do beyond that. And what I'd like... you at one point or another got to hold your stones and just take CJ Stroud at number 1, right? That you kind of just got to pull that trigger at that point and call it a day on that and move on. But if I was to say what I'd really kind of like to do, if I could pull this deal off, and there might not be the deal out there to be made, but let's look at some of the proverbial teams here. So you have Raiders, Carolina, Philly, Jacksonville, and Chicago, along with Detroit. Wow, Rams might end up giving Detroit a top 10 pick. Whew, no one's talking about that. And then you got Houston, who's looking at like they might have 2 top 10 picks because I think Cleveland will get out of the top 10 once Watson gets in there. But that's a lot of teams that you can kind of trade around for if you're in the top. You're up at number 1 to flip back on. I would look to try to get a team in my best case scenario that was willing to give me 3 first-round picks to move up from let's say, so let's say, let me give you my proverbial team. Well, let's say that I've got the Detroit Lions and they are picking, let's say they end up, well, they're actually doing okay at 3-6. That's not a good team here. Trying to find a good team to give you a good scenario. Let's take Carolina. Carolina Panthers, let's say, are picking at like 4 or 5 by the end of the year. And they want to get up to number 1. And they're willing to give me their first overall pick this year, which would be 5, and 2 other first round picks on top of that into the future. I would go make that deal. That is my ideal deal situation and deal. Because then you're turning the draft capital from Denver just keeps getting turned into more at that point, in my opinion. And the value for those 3 first-round picks, it does seem like, historically speaking, when teams have traded up, the multitude of selections to go get the quarterback, it always seems to ding the team that's giving up the draft picks more than it is the team that's trading a little bit back. The team trading back always looks a little smarter in retrospect. And that's my best case scenario on leaning if I get the number 1 overall pick. I know Hawk fans will be like, Stroud, but I'm like, I'm not as sold on these quarterbacks in this draft, and Stroud's going to take some time to develop. And I think there'll be a team with the way the quarterback draft class sets up that would be desperate and give us another King's ransom, treasure room of a king. We'd get another one of those in a haul for that. And now you've almost somewhat, in certain respects, kind of doubled the Russell Wilson trade. Sam the Great, Haggerty, Hernandez, Rodriguez is good enough for the outfield. Yeah. I mean, Haggerty definitely slowed down as the year went along from where he started. If you got 300 hitting Haggerty, that's a yes all day long. If you got 250 hitting Haggerty out there with no power, that's going to be a little bit more of a questionable, let's platoon this guy kind of situation. But the outfield's much more solidified out there with Hernandez out there with Rodriguez is kind of the base bottom line. And I don't think that the Mariners are done. I do not think they are finished. Truffles, we'll get you to 10,000 soon, buddy. Well, thank you, Truffles. You guys are always of great support and help here. And I know we will get there, sooner than later. So I can't be nothing but smile all the way around as folks, we're coming off our best 30 days of growth here on the channel ever, like 1,200 new subscribers in the last 28 days. So I'm just doing nothing but on cloud 9 all the time as far as when I look at where we're at on the marker and stuff. And we're cruising our way there sooner than later. But thank you, man. Michael Crowhorse, good evening. Noah says, since mentioning the secondary, I have to admit, Diggs played quite poorly so far. Do you think it's not trusting his leg or just age regressing in general? Because damn, $11 million per year. At the time he was signed, I didn't love the deal, Noah, and I didn't love the thought process of re-signing Quandre Diggs for, quite frankly, the exact reasons of what you're seeing on the football field right now. I wondered if you had not seen his best play on the football field. I didn't know if he was going to necessarily bounce back as much after having the most major injury of his career. He's heading into his 30s, and the cost was going to be pretty exorbitant. Those things, you put those all together and you go, this doesn't really sound like this is going to be a good deal for us. And it wasn't to throw shade at Diggs. He had earned that contract. So please don't, take it for that. But it was more about you paying for past performance, leadership maybe, more than you paying for what you were going to get into the future. I don't think he's played god-awful. I think he's had some really tough moments where he's looked bad, especially in tackling, which stands out for people, and that really does color a lot of opinions. If he catches the interceptions that are in his hands on a couple of different times this year, as he has in the past, he's got 3 or 4 interceptions, and people are probably talking about his year in a lot different of a manner than they are. I think he will end up getting a couple picks before the year's through. I think he will get better as the year goes along. I think in your question is also your answer, in that why he has been where he's been, in a large part, why he looks bad is, yes, some age, yes, coming off the injury, but that's, you put those together and he can improve upon those things. He can go into an offseason and get back to training rather than rehabbing, as you know he was having to do. And the thing that players point to a lot, Noah, is that I had to spend my whole offseason rehabbing. I wasn't able to train. Then I'm not at my athletic best come the season. And that's not a surprise, because rehabbing is not the same as training. One is preparing your body. One is, essentially getting yourself to peak performance. And those are two different goals that don't always align up with each other. So I think he's going to get that opportunity this offseason more, Noah. I think you'll get, I don't know if he'll ever be back to peak performance Quandre Diggs, but you're not going to release him. He's here for at least another year minimum. And I think at the very least, he'll give you near league average performance from the free safety position when it's all said and done during that time. Joe K, I thought we'd win 8 games this year in preseason. Perhaps 10 is possible now. Go Hawks. Hey, Joe, dream big, brother. Dream big. Why not 11? You know what I mean? But I think, yes, I was in the same place. I was at 7 at the start of the year. I thought that things went right on best case scenario. You could get to 11 wins. Things are moving into a best case scenario type of situation. And 11 wins is within your mark. It is within your reach. Sam Z says trade back. We're of like mind, Sam. Saijin, can we get Penix? Penix would be potentially, to me, a later round option you could get. When I'm talking about picking in the 3rd or 4th round, it would be for a guy like Penix. So yes, that is a possibility. Certainly Schneider, having him in the back door like he has had a good look at him and probably has a pretty firm opinion of him. So we'll see where it goes. I wouldn't want to put a high pick on Penix, But I think certainly if you're talking about third, fourth, fifth roundish area of things, that's reasonable. Thomas Cox says, would be happy if Jalen, Carter, Simpson, Richardson, and Patterson as your first 4 picks. I don't know necessarily as much on if you're saying Anthony Richardson, that'd be pretty good. Yeah, I think that the first 3, I haven't looked at Patterson as of yet, but I like your first 3. Yalrick V, best player available. Love it, Yalrick. Darcy, top 5 receiver in the first or second. All right, it's going to be hard for me, Dara, to lean towards wide receiver being a much of a need for us at this point. I think DK and Tyler are doing really well. At some point in this show, I might read for you guys an article that one of my patrons actually sent me. And I got to give him a shout out for doing so here on the channel, because he sent me a really great article. I think that's going to open some of your guys' eyes up about DK and Tyler and what they've done over the last few years and what Seahawks receiving corps has done over the last few years. For some of the advanced receiving numbers and getting open and what they give their quarterback as far as separation to look at times. So we're going to look at that a little bit closer. But Dara, you've got still moving forward. I don't think Eskridge is going anywhere. You could re-sign Goodwin back in here. And Bo Melton and Derek Young, you have some developmental guys. I think too, Dara, you could look out into free agency and bring in maybe one of those veteran guys that's looking for a ring chasing wide receiver veteran who could come in and not only give you a little bit of productivity, but also give you that vet in the room to help the guys out along with the other vets you got to help some of those young guys come along. So there's just some alternative routes to where then you can, to me, Dara, take those picks and put them in other places of higher need on the team at that point. And it's good to see you in the chat, Joe. Dara, Herbicide, what's up, man? Weedy Guitar Studio, yo. Harrison Hill, hey, Brandon, love your work. Thank you, Harrison. That's very kind of you to say, man. Appreciate you watching. Please do hit that like button for me, folks. Addison Shelbull says, just ordered a "they wrote me off, I ain't right back though" shirt if I wear it to the Rams game in 2 weeks. Hell yeah, I like that. You got to, Addison, you get that on, they got that on Amazon? I might have to get myself one of those shirts. Kevin Mullen with a $5 donation. And Kevin, I saw I'm a little late on acknowledging your dono, man. So sorry about that. I was got in on the chat there for a second there. Got lost in the chat. It happens. But thank you for the $5 donation, my man. It says Russell Wilson is on pace for 58 sacks. Gino at 40. Russell Wilson is 40% higher sack rate for total drop back than Gino. Russell Wilson's highest sack rate number was 51 in 2018. Our offensive line is fine. Very great. Some great stats here from Kevin that he's dropping. I want to just put those in again. Russell Wilson's on pace for 58 sacks to Gino's 40. Russell Wilson's 40% higher sack rate for total drop back than Gino. So he sacked at a 40% higher rate than Gino when they drop back to pass. Russell Wilson's highest sack rate was 51 in 2018. So Russell's sack rate at 58 that he's on pace for is even higher than his highest of the highs and the most he was hit. And yes, our offensive line, it shows, not only is fine for the guys we have in here who were on this team a little bit before. There's some of that question, and again, this is not to throw shade at Russell Wilson. It's just apropos on this towards considering the performance of our current offensive line and why they're looking so much better. Part of this is you have now a quarterback who is dedicated to operating from within the pocket and all that means. And when you have a quarterback that does not operate from within the pocket, they create situations that make it harder at times on the offensive line. The offensive line it's a couple of things. The offensive line has to block longer, which is going to stress them more. You're going to have mobile quarterbacks leave the pocket, which is then going to have to require the offensive lineman to know the exact second the quarterback's moving past their shoulder, getting out in space, out of the pocket, and then they have to then release their defender, or otherwise they're going to get called for holding. So it creates that as well. And then sometimes you get guys releasing guys a little early to not get the hold, but it's a little too soon. And now they have the quick, easy path to get to the quarterback who's scrambling, especially if said quarterback happens to be losing a little bit of speed and athleticism at the same point in time. Also, having a quarterback operating within the pocket and helping his line is a guy that can climb the pocket. Here comes pressure. I move in around. I move up into the pocket. I'm climbing that ladder. I don't go laterally. I go up into it. And we've had Gino have a lot of success in doing that. And these are little helpful things a quarterback can do in playing the position that can help his line out, help his line look better. And that's, I think, why you see it look as well. That's why I think Russell does challenge his particular offensive lines in that way. Russell does, to try to give maybe Russell a little bit of a benefit of the doubt on this, and just to say that this does remain a part that I shake my head at. Russell still has not been ever given in his career truly a top-notch pass-blocking offensive line since maybe his first season, maybe. And it is the thing that if I'm the Denver Broncos right now, as far as looking to address how I handle Russell Wilson going forward and to get the best success out of him, more than even getting the coach in here who's this or that, it's getting an offensive line that can get the job done up front for him. And know that he's going to challenge them already naturally, so you need the gifted guys. You need the talented guys. But thank you for the $5 donation, Kevin. I really do appreciate it. And those are some great statistics you're dropping on in the chat there. Herbicide says, I say we get Cam Ward in the third if he's available. See, we're seeing some great names. Herbicide's providing another one here. This is what I'm talking about, where this is not as much a draft if you think about it in quarterback terms of looking at the top stock, looking at the best of the best, and like, oh, who are the top 5 guys in the first round? Yes, there's those Strouds and those Youngs, and there's those names out there that people are going to talk about and gravitate towards. But for my money, there's just not as much certainty there with those first round guys as you'd like to see for selecting them that high versus some of the interesting, later round guys that'll be out there. Maybe even within our own state. Just look within our own state. Penix at Washington, or to your point on that, Herbicide, Cam Ward over there at Washington State, if he chooses to come out. There's some guys that will be out there that'll land in that area of the draft that are very interesting prospects there. They're not usually just sometimes those guys you'll pick in those moments who would be like flyer guys or not very talented type guys. These are actually guys that can, if they develop a little bit further, could be good pros. Meow Mix says potential Geno contract is 3 years, $90 million, $50 million guaranteed. And that's reasonable. I like it. That seems pretty reasonable to me, Meow. I think you're in a realistic place there. Yalric says no Pooper Cup for me. No, me neither. I'm done seeing him. Sam Z says Eagles picking up folks like cheap Bitcoin. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they're buying all the low. But this is why you have to tip your cap to the Eagles general manager and how he's doing things, because this has not just been this one player they've done this on. Look at what they did with the other cornerback that they were able to put next to Darius Slay. So they have Slay, who they brought in on a free agent deal, who has balled out for them since the free agent deal, right? And then they go get Bradbury out there as a corner who's just basically given up for nothing by his team. There's like, we're just going to be done with him. And he goes over for them, and I think he's playing reasonably well opposite Darius Slay. So they have a couple of good shutdown corners. And then now they're buttressing up their pass rush here with Ndamukong Suh and Quinn, and they're going to bring those guys in to be rotational guys. They'll play 25, 30% of the snaps. And that means those guys won't get tapped out. And something Suh showed you even last year is he could pick his spots. That was the thing about looking at Suh in free agency is you saw him with 5.5 sacks and you went, yeah. But then you saw his PFF grade and you went, no. Because his PFF grade was like 45 last year. So he was obviously a guy being asked when he out there for too many snaps, wasn't getting it done, but put him out for lesser snaps, which the Eagles will do. And maybe he can give them a little bit. Eagles are going to be scary. They're going to be scary having some of these reinforcements coming off the bench. Israel AI says, I think we will re-sign Penny. It won't be expensive. I am in favor of it, AI. I'm a long proponent of Rashad Penny. I think he showed you this year before the injury with what he was averaging yards per carry as he was starting to be the man there early on. He can be a good back in this league. Can he hold up physically? I don't know. If I'm giving him a 1-year deal and a shorter term contract, I don't particularly think that that's a huge risk at that point. The Seahawks have given out similar kind of deals in the past. And if you're asking him to be that backup guy and to be the little bit of insurance versus having to, let's say, make a pick in the second or third round at the running back position as an alternative, I like going that route with it. This injury wasn't related to the ACL injury he had or any of his other injuries. It is a separate one. Maybe he just can't hold up. I get the people who say that, but if we're talking about $3-4 million on a 1-year deal, I'm okay going that route with it. Sygen says Cards beating the 49ers would help us out a bit. That would be beneficial. We'll see if they will. Jeffrey says Eagles going to get bounced in the first playoff game, but they simply haven't been tested all year, and they rely too heavily on turnover differential. I'm of like mind with you. You know this on this that I feel like the Eagles are not going to be playing their best football into the December and January. I don't think Hurts is going to be throwing the best of his football throughout this year as it gets into colder weather games. But these are going to help them. Jeffrey, and they've done these two moves aren't going to hurt him, right? I don't know if it's enough to put them over the top or turn them into that absolute consensus number one dog out here in the NFC, but it certainly gives them a good leg up in that respect. Jeffrey says you can't play bums all year and expect to adjust to playoff football overnight. Eagles are not as good as people think. I think I'll die on that hill. You have a good point. It's not that you don't. You have a good point with it. And again, I've been on this kind of road too. I haven't been as much. I haven't been as much to that they're not as good. I just think that they're playing at their best football. This is like the best version of this potential Eagles team, and I think that they've peaked a little bit early. I relate them, Jeffrey, to I feel like they're the Yankees of this past baseball season is what the Eagles are now. Yankees were peaking out in July, and then just kind of, but we'll see. I like you guys thinking they'll choke. I'm with it. AI says Vita Vea, Devin White, and Akeem Hicks are ridiculously talented. That is why we couldn't do anything in the first half. They were working together well. AI, those are guys just not only, to your point, are ridiculously talented, but they all really work well together. You've got Akeem and Vita Vea stacked next to each other. Those are two guys that are going to command double teams all on their own. And Devin White, I think he showed AI. I've done a lot of in the chat when discussing Devin White, especially in the precluding this game and the run up to this game with the Buccaneers. I was giving him a lot of credence and saying, man, this guy's a really good player. And people are like, look at his PFF score. Oh, he's trash. He's garbage. I think you saw in this game why Devin White is, to me in my mind, such a good player. I'm not saying that he's the best of the best at the linebacker position, but as somebody put in my comment section after watching that video on Walker that I put out a couple days ago, he's a problem. He's a problem offensively to deal with. He's big, he's fast, he's rangy, he's hard to block. We've seen with some of our linebackers this year that once you get guys to the second level, they can't get off those blocks. You'll notice with that guy, he doesn't have those same kind of problems. He slips right off of them. Trevor Starr says, what do you think about Voorhees, the inside offensive lineman from USC? I have not taken a look at him. I am starting to get into my film study, though. So, Trevor, though I have not looked at him yet, USC. I have him down now in my notes. So, by the next show on Sunday, I will have taken a look at him for you. So, come back on Sunday at 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, and I will tell you what I've got as far as thoughts. So if you guys got some guys presented that you want me to start to take a look at here, we are into that prospect time of the year now. I've got enough tape here on this final year. I think that we can start to make some of our assessments on these guys. So feel free to present those. Trevor says, I think I can go defensive tackle, linebacker, quarterback, center, guard, wide receiver, safety, cornerback, kicker in the draft. I like all those, Trevor. I don't know if corner is going to be as much of a need. Remember, you're getting Trey Brown back here, and that might round out the ranks there where you feel pretty good about things, but I'm not anti it either. Can't have enough corners. But I like your list. I like the order of your list. That works for me on a general order, as well. So I'm with it. Y'all are, I'd be behind center, defensive tackle, or middle linebacker for any of our first three picks. Definitely want to get a project to be somewhere around there. You guys, we're all of like mind, I think, on this. Defensive tackle, center, middle, inside linebacker. I mean, these are the positions I think that stand out. I think a 3-4 defensive end is one you could probably add into there if we're going defensive tackle / 3-4 defensive end. But these are all places that I think are worthy of going after. And frankly, if I look at it right now with where the value seems like it's going to be on an far too early, way too soon, hasn't even been the combine, haven't even been pro days, I haven't even looked through all the film. This is just me pulling this rawly from the bottom of my gut. I feel like the value on the board when we pick first, let's say if it is the 7th selection, is going to be on the defensive line. That if we look at the top rated guy that's going to be on our board at that moment, it will be a Miles Murphy, Jalen Carter, one of those kind of guys that's sitting there at that point. And if that's my BPA at that moment, I'm perfectly happy selecting that there. Jordan Croft says, I heard Russell Wilson is still using audibles from the Seahawks in code words that his teammates don't know, and he's losing his mind. Okay. Yeah, we gotta talk a little bit about it. So there was a Denver radio station that went on, Tyler Columbus, of course, a former Seattle Seahawk, but a longtime Denver Bronco. I guess he's kind of settled in there to Denver a little bit in kind of covering the team now a little bit for them on radio, but then he also has some supposedly inside sources on the game there as well in Denver and what's going on. They were talking on the channel about Wilson and discussing things, and that they were hearing that, yes, he was using audibles from Seattle at the line of scrimmage that receivers weren't recognizing, that he was calling audibles out of plays that he didn't like with Hackett, that there's a big rift kind of growing between him and Hackett on the direction of things. He was using code words at the line of scrimmage that they didn't, it was like from Seattle that none of the players knew what the hell that he meant by it. And at first blush, it may be easy enough to say, well, who's Tyler Columbus, or who's his connection? Because it's obviously inside sources he's not going to reveal. But then let's also remember the fact that we know 100% undeniably with a fact that Russell Wilson was using the same hand signs in the opening game against the Denver Broncos that he used in Seattle. Tyler Lockett recognized it in the game, was mic'd up in recognizing it, and then let all the defensive players know what the hand signs meant. And so at first blush, you may say, well, that's not true. There's no way that it can be true. That's absolutely no way. Huh? That's insane. But I'm just saying. Oh, God. Saijin says Titans 7-0 in the first. Oh, do we have I probably should start watching the game here a little bit. You guys get me caught up in the chat, man. Just get me laughing in the chat. I forget about the other things. So yeah, let me get the game going up here on my end here. Live now. Green Bay Titans. Do we want yeah, I think we do want. Yeah, we want Green Bay to lose this game, right? Oh, yikes. Locking up on me here. Thanks. Osama bin Diesel, thank you for the $5 donation, Osama. It says, typical Brando. Mariners make two big trades, and instead of live streaming on the Crow's Nest, he's talking about PFF numbers like a nerd who hates first running backs. No, Osama, you're right, man. I was meaning to get a stream done on that. So let's shoot for Osama. I'm gonna be doing a Mariner stream tomorrow. So let's go with like afternoon tomorrow. Osama, does that sound good to you, man? I'll do a 3:00 stream over on the Crow's Nest, and we'll talk these Mariner editions over there. That gives me some time tonight to look at what we got on the trade with Lewis and kind of get a little bit more on it. I will say, Osama, you were in on we were doing the live streaming of the Mariners games at the end of the year and the Toronto Blue Jays, and of course he hit 2 home runs off, I think, Robbie Ray, and I was talking about how nice it would be able to add Hernandez this offseason somehow, some way, because he's such a good, he's such a fun player to watch when you saw him in that series, and he really stood out to you. And I'm glad they brought him in. It's a good opening step of this offseason, and as I think we're going to see here, there's going to be more moves, to be made, Osama. But let's go with 3:00. I'll be over on the Crow's Nest tomorrow, and we'll live stream over there for a couple hours, talk these moves out. DJ says, would you trade Russell Wilson? Would you trade Broncos' second-round pick up for a first for a quarterback and use their first this year for Anderson? Would I trade the Broncos' second-round pick up for a first for a quarterback and then use their first round this year on Anderson? I probably wouldn't trade up, TJ. Obviously, trading up, if you're talking about in the back of the first round to get a quarterback, it's to get that fifth-year option. But I've long been a little bit skeptical about that fifth-year option stuff. I think it sounds good in theory. It doesn't exactly work out the way you think it will with that more often than not. No, I'd probably just stand pat with the second-round pick and just use our picks at that point in time. I'm not quite I got to look more into Anderson. I feel like he's still put out a lot of really great tape this year, and I think he's still going to be a marvelous player, but more than being generational, are we sure he's not more into just mold of being like a Kayvon Thibodeau kind of prospect talent, or is he really truly generational? And I think we've got to get to that point of really understanding if that's where he is. I think he's a phenomenal player to a certain degree, but certainly not super refined. And it's not a big position of need as it stands right now. If you can move other guys and then move him in as a starter over those guys you move, like a Darrell Taylor, and get something back for those kind of guys, and then just offload assets from one to another and still, then that's something else. But if we're just talking about throwing him into the mix with Boye Mafe, Uchenna Nwosu, Darrell Taylor, maybe even Alton Robinson in on that time, I don't know on that. I think that I'm more apt to probably go interior line on that, TJ, because there's not only is it more of a need interior, but there might be really just as good a prospects in on the inside at that point on top of it. Jordan Graff says, should have worn the sleeve. Yeah, did you guys notice he was wearing the play call sheet on his arm to the press conference? Amari, should we go after Michael Penix because he was making franchise quarterback plays versus Oregon? Well, I think when you certainly get a guy like a Brock Heward who's in the stadium watching that game, former quarterback who watched a lot of quarterback play, I definitely trust in his opinion on certain matters like this. And when he says that there was throws he was making in that game that were pro level throws, and that does fit to what I've seen from him this year in watching Penix as well. If the left-handed delivery throws you off and does make it a little bit of a difficulty at times to assess these guys, because it just sometimes looks so awkward, but you can't deny the fact that, he can spin it. He's got a stronger arm than I think he gets even credit for. He's got relatively good mobility. I think the offense is relatively set up for things to be kept pretty simple for him overall, but I see him at times also able to go through some reads and do some things in that respect of things. I think he's got some injury concerns with him. But yes, if we're talking about it being going third round and on, I'm with it, Zhao, or I'm with it, Amari. If we're talking about going first or second round pick, no, I wouldn't want to pick him in that high. Sal Zero says, hey, Brandon, good to see you on here. With experts projecting we will have between a 4th and 6th overall, there have been many stating we would be drafting Myles Murphy. I'm also hearing he's Myles Garrett. I don't know if he's Myles Garrett because he's a just different player. Myles Garrett was more of just a freakish 4-3 defensive end. Just like you have, old school traditional size defensive end, but moves like a guy that weighs 255. That's not Myles Murphy. Myles Murphy is more of just explosion power. He can move good. Don't get me wrong. He's just not. Myles is his own level of freakishness. That's very special. I feel like Myles Garrett, that is. But Murphy's. It's no shade at him. If they select Myles Murphy, he's been one of the more impressive prospects I've looked at on film so far. You could move him at 3-4 defensive end. They've even had him do some times where he stood up and done outside 3-4 linebacker stuff if you want to get a little exotic with him. I don't think that that's his bread and butter and where you want to put him, but as a 3-4 defensive end, he could do that. He could probably do some 3-tech stuff as a defensive tackle. Very, very explosive out of his stance. Hard to deal with for offensive linemen. Really, really solid initial punch that he delivers. I like Myles Murphy quite a bit. Zao Zero, the comparison. It's not a horrible. It's from a size standpoint, they're relatively same. It's just that they play two different positions, I'd say, too, Zao. Again, with Garrett, 4-3 defensive end, that's what he is. Could he play some 3-4 defensive end? Yeah, it'd be a waste of his talents, I think, a little bit. But with a guy like Murphy, he's really a pure 3-4 defensive end, too, on the inside of that, just to my eyes. He could probably do some 4-3 end like Garrett could do some 3-4, but it's not where he'd be at his best. I was back in the first 1500, 2000. AI says I was back in the first 1500, 2019, way back when. You're one of my old school guys, my old school folks. Megan says, B, you still need to convince me that Will Levis is the best fit for us. Have you been watching film of him and seeing nothing that makes me think he's the right for us? CJ Stroud all the way. CJ's played better this year, Megan. It really comes down to where the assessment lies at for you on what you give the benefit of the doubt to with Levis and a couple of considerations that CJ doesn't have. CJ has a solid to great offensive line. Will Levis has a poor to horrific offensive line. CJ Stroud's throwing to Marvin Harrison, a Hall of Famer's son, who looks every bit as talented as dad, if not more so talented, and that's just the beginning of their receiving core. He's got tight ends to throw to. He's got running backs to run the ball well out of the backfield that are threats that the defense has to command and put attention to. When I look at Kentucky, all Will Levis really has is that Rodriguez at the running back position, who's a pretty good running back who will go probably in about the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, Megan. That's where he'll end up landing. And that is really all he has offensively to work with. So the question comes down to how much is Will Levis's performance being impacted by the fact that he gets barely any pass protections. His receivers can't get open nor catch the ball when they do. And he doesn't have a lot of talent on that offensive side of the ball to help him on top of that. Now, maybe there's a line to that, Megan, where it has to be, well, he still needs to perform well. He still needs to do his job. Yeah, but when the guy on the other side of this has all of those things that he is missing without, that's got to be built into the assessment. You know with me that I don't play a lot of trying to put really hard predictions out there unless I'm really certain of it. And I've been saying this for a while, Lil Levis is having as a step back kind of year performance-wise as far as how he's playing right now. But I think that teams are going to give him the benefit of the doubt, Megan, because pro NFL teams, general managers are going to look at him and they're going to make the same assessment I think I'm making from the standpoint of giving him that benefit of the doubt and saying, look, there comes a point when you're playing with such bad stuff all around you that I've got to understand that that's going to lead to you having bad habits built and leading to you trying to play Superman. And if you look at a lot of his bad performances, Megan, it's at times either he getting hit in the pocket 1 second after he gets the ball in shotgun, or he's trying to just make too much happen when there's nothing there, extending a play a little too long, trying to run out of an open field and get every last yard he can go get. To me, it's the competitiveness that you see him in the willing and want to do that. He's not a guy that wants to shrink forward. He wants to step up. But every player needs a certain amount of help. No player in a game like this can be on their own Superman. And with Stroud, I love him a lot too, Megan. I think he's going to go number 1 overall. I think he's probably vaulted himself ahead of Levis and where he'll be selected in this draft. But I also think he has a lot of the game built fairly easily for him up front. I don't think he's had the same level of competition Levis has had to go up against. I think he's getting to run more of a college-like system. Levis is running a pro-style system. And remember that, Megan, don't discount that as well. The pro-style system factors into this. If you have a college quarterback who's trying to run pro-style system, and not just pro-style system, but our offense, that's complicated. That's more difficult than running a spread offense in college where the reads are simple, and sometimes you have a one-read look. Sometimes it's look the safety off this way, come back here, throw the bubble, toss this one right out. If it's not there, just go out there and run. There's a lot of simplified approaches built in. His offense is not built with those same kind of simplified approaches. It's a lot more complicated. So it's where I still land on it. He would still be a better fit for us in this offense. I have to acknowledge, though, that, yeah, certainly he's not performed. He's not taken a step forward this year. He's got a lot of bad tape out there on some of these games, but perspective matters. And if your supporting cast is that bad, can I expect you to still turn in an Academy Award performance? Well, maybe, but it gets hard when the quarterback, you're relying on other guys for you to look good too. Guys catching the ball, guys blocking, running backs that are actually able to be productive. But I'll give you this. CJ's still great. Still like me, CJ too. Ender with a $20 donation. My God, Ender, thank you so much for the big donation, brother. You were very kind for doing so. Says, are the Raiders going to block up Kenneth Walker III like the Bucs and beat us with Devontae? How's our running game going to stop Jacobs? Well, thank you for the $20 donation. First off, that was very kind of you for that. I appreciate it. I don't believe that the Raiders are going to be able to block up for Kenneth Walker. Another chat in this kind of mentioned you had sort of a three-headed beast that held you off in this game, where it was Vita Vea, Akeem Hicks, and Devin White. And that trio was really able to laser lock in your running game and really kind of take it apart. Other guys helped out too. Levante David didn't play a bad game. Carl Nassib did actually pretty good in the run game for the Buccaneers in this game as well, while looking at the All-22 tape. But the Raiders don't have anywhere near that kind of personnel. If that was in Madden Ender of like a 93 run grade for a defense, I think the Raiders are probably more in the 80-ish territory of things. So you have to have the talent to be able to run that like the Buccaneers were running it. They certainly don't have a linebacker like Devin White. They don't even have a Levante David, I think, really to give you that kind of scare and fear to believe that they're going to stop the running game in the same kind of way. You just ran into kind of a unique beast in this particular game. I think say nothing of the field. I think the field also wasn't helpful for a guy like Kenneth Walker, who's going to try to really cut sharply. If I can't get my foot underneath me and I can't plant it and get a good solid footing, that's going to affect my ability to do that. So I think that that's not likely to be the case, Ender. That's more of the one-off kind of situation. Devontae Adams is difficult to deal with. He's getting a lot of targets from the Raiders. They're trying to get their money's worth on the back end of that big contract that they paid out to him. But I think we'll be relatively okay at stopping him. It's going to be a challenge. Your young guys are going to definitely get targeted, and they're going to go after him, and it's not going to be a lot of double teaming, I don't think. You're just going to ask the Seahawks defense to slide into their zone-based coverage and just fall into their, fundamentals, essentially. So he's a guy that if you have guys that are a little bit rough and young, he can certainly take advantage of them with some of his veteran route running. He's a purified route runner as it gets in that respect of things. And so that's going to challenge anybody, even a top-notch, talented corner like Tariq Woolen has been for us this year. I'm not as super scared about Brandon Jacobs. I don't think that the Raiders, much like my point would be with the defensive line ender, I don't think that the Raiders have the same kind of offensive line that the Buccaneers have, even on the edges, to do with what they did. I think you'll be able to string that together okay. It's going to be something that teams are going to try to go after us with. This is a little bit of the baseline that has been laid now against the Seahawks team. If you want to beat the Seattle Seahawks, the way to go about it is not necessarily trying to throw the ball over the football field, but instead stay committed to the running game, and eventually you will break through. And that's what the Buccaneers did in this past game. The Raiders are certainly going to try to implement that same kind of strategy. That, like I said, is the baseline for how to go after us. I just like our chances of doing it. I think we'll slide more into the 3-4 looks. Brian Monet won't be an active ender like he was in this last game, so you'll have one extra run defender on the football field. And we're going to force the Raiders to try to beat us in the passing game, and I don't think that they're going to be able to do that. I think they're down a couple of guys like Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow, so it really does come all the way down under to Devontae Adams in this particular game as being the main and only kind of receiving threat you've got to really worry about, unless you guys want me to include Deshaun Jackson on that list. And, he's still fast, I guess. But Ender, thank you for the $20 donation. That's very kind of you, man. Robbie Red with a $2 donation says, would you rather have Trenton Simpson or Noah Sewell? I'm Trenton Simpson all day. I've got a lot more. Noah Sewell's a little bit like Will Anderson, where I get my initial read on him, and then I'm like, I might be a little off on this. I need to look a little deeper. Trent Simpson, I really like him. Rangy. He's having a little bit of I think, lesser season this year than what he did last year. And so there's a little bit of a measure of really looking Trenton between the 2 years and what he does from a productivity standpoint and making a determination about why were you maybe not as good this year than last. And Sewell's got a lot of the same stuff going on. I feel like Trenton just pops a little bit more on the tape than Sewell does. I'm just not a big Noah guy. I've really yet to the light bulb was not yet turned on for me as to why he is looked at as a first or second round player. I see a guy that's a mid-round linebacker in his instincts and level play. Maybe he's really fast for his size and quick for his size, but instincts-wise, it's not really there. But Trenton's just a problem. Hard to block, quick, slippery, rangy, fast, kind of everything you'd want in a modern linebacker. You could even move him. You could even have him occasionally, Robbie, rush off the edge as a 3-4 linebacker, which I don't think you can do with Noah Sewell either. So he'd provide you, I think, a lot of versatility as well. But there are those folks out there talking about the fact that his last year here in college has been a little less than stellar work from Trenton than what it was last year. Thank you, Robbie, though. Appreciate it, man. Osama Ben Diesel with another $5 donation. Thank you, Osama, for the double dono. Says 3 p.m. sounds great tomorrow. Can we get a petition for an Australian overseas game? Let's see how good the East Coast is when it's 6 p.m. for the Hawks. I like it, Osama. I'd at least be more in favor of that than going to Germany. If you're going to force the West Coast teams to go anywhere, like I said, what it should be is it should be East Coast teams have to go out to Europe. And if you're going to do international games for West Coast teams, it's Canada, Mexico, or hey, let's throw Australia into it. Let's go Australia too. That's at least reasonable, I guess, compared to those other ones, but yeah, the international games are just, kind of silly as it is. And no, it's a bet, Osama. We'll be on at 3 and we'll turn over these Mariner signings, kind of look at also some of the other possibilities for what they can do this offseason. It is a good start, Osama, what they're doing here out the gate. I'm glad to see them being active early and not just sort of trying. We're going to be patient. We're not going to freak out on the market. We're not going to overstretch ourselves. We're going to let things fall to us. And then you sit around and let things fall to you and then there's nothing left. You're like, well, we're being patient though. Yeah, great. And you got nothing. So it's good to see them active early here. I think it puts them in a pole position to then go make that final last deal or two to kind of cement things off. So be interesting to see. But thank you for the double dono, Osama. And 3 p.m. tomorrow it is. Jaden London says, I hope Will Anderson releases a gas mask bong video. It wouldn't dissuade Schneider or Carroll. They'd be like, yeah, just a young guy doing young things. It's all good. AI says, Brandon, what are your picks with our first 5 picks next year? If you're general manager, mine are defensive line, center, linebacker, guard, running back, or best available. I have a hard time locking in necessarily on saying it's got to be these picks with the first, second, third selection. I think your list is a priority list, is pretty close to where I would be. Defensive line, center, linebacker, or linebacker, center, however you want to go. Those are definitely where I would land on. I do think with the right guard, you could go find that. Let's say free agency, there's always about 10 right guards available that are all pretty decent. You can go find for a pretty low cost. So yeah, your list of first 3 as a priority is pretty good. I do say I would like to operate AI as much as we can, as hard a line as you can draw into just the best player available. Who's the top guy you got on your board, and go grab that guy. There's times where you can't do this. It just doesn't make sense. If I've got the best tackle in the draft at the point we're picking, selecting, it's like, oh, we can't really go there with that. But best player available is really let that be the guiding, driving force. If I land with the number 1 pick there, AI, and I've got a generational like linebacker, but I've determined defensive line's the bigger need, I still would rather go for the generational linebacker. I don't think there's going to be that guy in this draft, but I'm just giving it as kind of a representation is a little bit. Megan says, B, haven't forgotten what you said about Dave Craig being a better quarterback than Jim Zorn. Oh, I mean, it's we can dive into the numbers, but I mean, it is what it is on that, Megan. Zal Zeros, or Dr. XP, should we get Tavon Austin? Gino must be interested in having him on our team. And Dr. XP is, of course, referencing the former connection between those West Virginia Mountaineers. The Mountaineers in West Virginia. Oh, West Virginia. Yes, I would be potentially interested in this. Tavon is older than dirt, but one thing that he always did very well at a pro level was return kicks and punts, and he's very comfortable with it. I don't think that he would have, for instance, the issues DJ Dallas has had of allowing punts to drop 10 yards in front of him because he can't run up and catch it, and he doesn't feel comfortable running up and catching it. I also think that you wouldn't see Tavon Austin fair catching a 54-yard kick as we saw DJ Dallas also do. So yeah, I think we need to do something about this here. I don't know if there's a good option. I don't know where Tavon is in his, he's retired and gained 20 pounds, but I do think that we do need to do something about this. And if not this year, at least into this off season. Micah YT says Gino's a top 5 quarterback, period. He is certainly playing at that mark this year, Micah, and I don't think that he's going to drop off of it anytime soon. I think his performance is sustainable. But yes, I think this year he's playing at a top 5 level. Well said. Herbicide, my first 5 picks are Murphy and inside linebacker, outside linebacker, nose tackle, and then nose tackle 4th, and then a center. Wow, you're going heavy defense, huh, Herbicide? You're going to wait till the 5th round to get a center? That might be a little late for me. Might be a little late. I don't know if outside linebackers is much a need. Yalric, quarterback performance can be more reflective of the O-line than the quarterback. Very much, Yalric. Very well said. This is one of those reasons that I've been very much on board with saying for very long. Before you go get that quarterback, one reason I said don't get the quarterback in this draft. You don't have the line in place to do so. You're starting to finally put that line in place to give that quarterback to be put in a position to succeed. Carson Wentz looks like a broken player now. Nowhere near the guy that was once an MVP level performer for the year that the Eagles were able to go to the Super Bowl. And why he gave you that performance was because he was given an offensive line that was amazing in front of him, and that allowed him to then succeed and perform like he did. And having a good supporting cast can take a quarterback who's not the best of the best from a talent standpoint and really elevate their game. And that's become more clear and clear to me actually in recent years than ever before. Zao Zero, I do like Drew Sanders from Arkansas from linebacker. Zao, can you do me a favor and give me a game to go watch with Drew Sanders in it from Arkansas this year? Because I've turned on the tape twice, both 2 times, and I'm it sounds like I'm overstating this to you. I've fallen asleep both times watching the tape of Arkansas's defense play with Sanders. So you've got to give me the game to go watch, because I lock in on him. I just see a guy just out there who's just kind of moving around. He's moving. He's what's he doing? Well, he's going in a direction, but I don't necessarily see anything that stands out to me on his level of play. But he is getting a lot of hype out there, is Drew Sanders. So I'm probably missing something on it. Man in the pit. If Jimmy G can get a ring, so can Gino. Absolutely, 100%. Why not? Especially when he's playing far beyond whatever Jimmy G's ever played at from a performance standpoint. AI, when Geno has a clean pocket, he is deadly accurate. His passing form is unbelievable. He wasn't like this when he was younger. No, he's cleaned up. He has cleaned up his delivery. He's gotten it quicker, cleaner. His footwork is impeccable, which is the part that really, I think, even above the waist is what develops for quarterbacks from a mechanical standpoint as they get older. But he has been on it, and he's been given a lot of clean pockets at times, and he's taken advantage. But he's as good as any quarterback of hitting his back foot and letting it rip, and not only putting it in a point with accuracy, but putting it right on a spot. Carter Bus, I'd love to see Sayaki Aka in the early second or Maze Smith in the fourth to help our inside defensive line. I thought I looked at Aka. He's on my list, I think. I think he's on my list. Let me take a look. Maybe not. I think I have him still maybe on my list. No, I got him. Nope, I looked at him. Saiki Aka. So he's a pure nose tackle. Large, powerful, zero tech with good natural low pad level that accentuates his power. Has secondary abilities. He gets up to speed faster than a man his size, and he adds in a little bend as well. Both unusual secondary traits for a man built like Sayaki. I like it. I liked his initial look at his tape, man. I like where your head's at, Carrot Bus. Sal Zero says Levis is better quarterback than his team represent, but I don't blame you for not seeing the hype when his team is a dumpster fire, and Zal's referencing Megan. And yeah, Megan, I can't blame you either. I mean, like I said, you're seeing him not play great right now, and there's definitely a component of that saying, well, this is because he's just not necessarily as good as people are saying, and it does get hard to differentiate where the bad play is on the quarterback and the bad team, and how far the bad team's taken him or how low the bad team's taken him. Jacob Chamberlain says, will this be a video to watch later? Yep. All this stuff will be posted to the channel, Jacob. Herbert says Murphy and Sayaki would be crazy. That would be a great combination. You want to talk about beefing up your defensive line in one draft in a big way. That would do it. And yeah, this will be a video. And I'll be over my Crow's Nest tomorrow at 3 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. So you guys aren't subscribed over there, get subscribed to my baseball channel. But yeah, for sure. Daniel, I like the trade back idea. Imagine trading back to 5 for 3 firsts and then to 12 for another first and plus a third and taking my favorite, Quentin Johnson. Have you had a chance to see his tape yet? I have not yet, Daniel, and I know that's one I'm behind on. By Sunday, let's check back in with me on Sunday. That's another one I've got already on my list. He's at the top of my list of the next prospects to look at. So I will have your breakdown on Quentin on the next one. I promise you on that one. 100%. And yeah, the trade back idea just really sort of tickles me to do it as a way. I think that's going to, what you could be pulling off on resources from that. And it's really, to me, one of those seller market kind of situations where you're talking about me moving 4 picks back so you can get your quarterback and you're going to give up so much more than you should to do so. And the teams always look back that end up trading. We got Washington, right? They did the Robert Griffith trade to go get Griffin. They gave the Rams all those assets to do it. Didn't turn so well for Washington, did it? Or the San Francisco 49ers recently that did the same kind of situation for Trey Lance, albeit they had to move up, I think, a little bit higher. So they had to give up a little bit more of that extra draft capital to get it done because of that. But I like the idea of doing it. You could start to really stack up so many more extra picks for just moving back a very small amount of spaces. Big task at hand. The Giants will be back. The Seahawks will pay. Bring it, big task. We're ready for you. We ain't scared of you, Giants. We ain't scared of you, New Yorkers. We'll come down to your house. We'll come down to Brooklyn. You want to do this in the streets? Want to do this in the streets? We'll take back over New York like we did in 2013. Okay? We'll take over New York like we did when it was the Super Bowl. You want us to do that again? You want to hear Seahawks chants again from the streets, carrying from all 5 boroughs? You want to hear that one more time? Do you, Giants fans? I don't think you want that. I don't think you want the pain you're signing up for right now. Amari Taylor, how do you feel about Jordan Travis? He's a good quarterback prospect. I have not looked at him. I've looked at about 20 quarterback prospects so far, but I've not looked at Jordan Travis. So he is on my list. Amari, I've got him on there. I'll take a peek. Sal Zero says, I do like Hooker. He's showing his spot as one of the best prospects since Peyton Manning. You mean from Tennessee, you mean? Okay, there. I thought you were going to say for best prospects since Peyton. I was like, whoa, you're really on board, Hooker. Yeah, Hooker has been the one quarterback, I think, this year, maybe outside of, he's been, and Anthony Richardson, I think the two guys who have really elevated themselves this year versus where they were starting the year out preseason wise. Stroud's played really well, but I think he was kind of a consensus guy going into the year, and he's remained there. Maybe Will Levis has dropped just a tiny bit. Maybe Young has dropped or stayed right around where he was going to be. But Hooker has been the riser, a guy people looked at as a third or fourth round guy who might now start to be creeping up into the first round despite his age. He has been really, really, really money. And he's also done it against really good competition as well. So it's a bit of the combination of that. But he's come further along than he was even last year, Zal. He's also a guy, some of these guys watching the tape, they look still very similar to last year. In certain respects, he's a guy his mechanics have cleaned up. His arm strength seems a little bit more than it was the prior year. He's a little bit more keener in his decision-making. Things that you would expect to take a step forward have taken a step forward. Joe Biden's Make-A-Wish. What do you think about Emil Ikior? He'd be the next Charles Cross. I wouldn't want to go tackle. Emil Iki. Boy, there's some names already in this draft. Ikior. Okay. He's added to my list, Joe Biden's Make-A-Wish, but I haven't taken a look at him. I would be very hesitant to want to look at another tackle. So if he's a guard or something, then certainly maybe. Jordan Graff, Russ is going to be debating retirement after the season. Brandon, are you sure thinks he made a mistake now? It's getting dark there, and I'm not trying to beat on him too much. But when we get new news that comes out, and it is relevant to us looking at our draft picks and where we're going to be selecting at the end of the year, as we already start to daydream about how high this selection can be. It is this has been an insane season to look at as far as what you thought going into it versus what it's been in so many different ways, and that does include Russ. And yeah, it's kind of incredible to see what's happened there with him and how that's gone. And you know, I'm kind of speechless on it, quite frankly, because it's just like every week you hear, like, I saw that soundbite come out this week of like is up on Twitter or whatever. You're seeing like Tyler Columbus inside sources talking about Russ is losing his mind. He's calling plays. Like, Jesus, it's come to this. It's come to this. Megan says, I am deeply ashamed to say I picked the Packers. It's easy to count against those Titan teams, Megan, but that Vrabel gets those guys up every week to go. I mean, his stock as a coach to me has gone up this year, even more so than the past, with how he gets his teams ready to roll. I think he's a guy that doesn't get a lot of acclaim and stuff, and people sometimes kind of, because he's got a little bit of that fire and brimstone kind of Dan Campbell kind of manner to him a little bit. He's got that vibe he gives off just a tiny bit, but that guy gets his guys ready to go. I mean, they're not as talented as they've been in recent years. No A.J. Brown and Taylor Lewan out most of the year. That offensive line's nowhere near as strong as it's been in recent years. And boy, they came into our stadium and beat the brakes off us last year. Zalzero says, Maze Smith from Michigan. I have heard that name. So that's another name on my list. Mike Skinner, would you rather draft defense or offense with the first pick we have? I'm a best player available on the board, Mike. So, you know, if I have an offensive guy that fits to something I need and he's rated 95 and I have a defensive player who's rated 88, 89, or that's my projectable status on them as a player, I'd rather go for the offensive guy if that's the higher guy, and vice versa if the defensive guy is at a higher point. So I know it sounds like me maybe not being willing to make a selection here, Mike, but it really just comes down to being more married to the drafting approach of BPA. Best player available. And I apply this mainly, Mike, because I feel like a lot of the reason why your drafting has gone wrong at times in recent years, not last year, and maybe not even the year before that, but in other prior years in the teens, why it kind of went wrong was because you got locked into picking towards, we need this, We need that. We need a defensive end. We need a man. Let's get LJ Collier. We got to get that. So instead of doing that, just take the best guy that's on your board. Who's the highest projectable guy on your board as much as you can fit within that, and let that guide you, because that will take you to the promised land. Jordan Croft, Hendon Hooker would be interesting, but I agree he is too old. If we can get him in a later round, then why not take a shot? Agreed. If you can get him a little bit later, but I think even low second rounds right now is probably his floor. Probably his floor, I would guess. Robbie Red says if we can grab Andre Carter in the second round, that would be amazing. That's about the right value for him there, I think. It's another good name on there. You guys got good names on this one. I've watched a little bit of Andre Carter, but it was a little bit more of him. I need to go back on him. Daniel Dan says, I just saw the coolest trick play by the Titans. Nice. Zal, if we can grab Zach Harrison in the second round, that'd be amazing. Gosh, you guys got a good name. Thank you for the names. It's just what I'm looking for, guys, is some of the names I can take a look at. So thank you for that. I haven't looked at that, by the way, Zal. So if I'm writing a name down, I haven't had a chance to peek at him yet. Nick Guzman, I actually think we should get another good young running back in the 4th or 5th if somebody actually falls there. I'm with it too, Nick. That's part of that best player available approach that you apply, right? So you get to that 4th or 5th round and you got a running back that's there. They'll say, wow, he should not be here. Let's get this guy. Then, hey, jump on him at that point. Grab away. If there's one there that determines that value to do so. And it very well might. This running back class is looking actually pretty decently. So especially he's got some good guys up at the top end, and that might push some guys down the board just a little bit in conjunction with that. So I'm okay with that approach. Jordan Kraft, Darrell Taylor has been a disappointment, though he would have had a breakout year by now, or at least a Nwosu-like season. Yeah, he's been a disappointment. His inability to hold up in the running game, even to a moderate level, is, I think, the big problem. But as a pass rusher, he's also not been able to consistently find a manner and approach. He doesn't seem to have much of a plan out there when it comes to rushing the passer. He seems to very much just lean on his quickness and speed around the edge. And sometimes he's just so quick and just so fast he can get around that edge. But this year has certainly been one where you thought he'd take a step forward, and instead he's taken probably a half step to a full step backwards in his play. He's very raw. And the difference between him and Uchenna Nwosu is Uchenna is a guy that is really advanced in his technique and understanding of as a pass rusher. And Darrell Taylor is very raw. And for a guy going in now into what I would consider his 3rd season, I don't just give him that injury year off, because there's things you could have been working on or trying to understand about the position a little bit further along than you did. It's rough on that in that respect of things. So there's no kind of covering up on this one. And unfortunately, there's not a lot we can count on with Taylor, I don't think, going forward here, outside of him starting to turn it on through the back half of this year. I think the team's going to put him in a position to be successful by making him only a rotational pass rusher, which will remove him off the field in rundown situations. But even a guy like Bruce Irvin has outplayed him this year, and outplayed him considerably. Herbicide says BJ Ojolari. I sure did like it's got to be his brother. Ojolari. I'll look him up as well. I think I've seen a little of his tape, but not a lot. Just a little bit, not a lot. Nick Guzman says, I've seen Brian Brees go to us if we get the 6th or 8th in some mock drafts. He's a little bit like Trenton Simpson. They both play on the same team. Both of them have had a little bit of an underwhelming year at times. Brees coming off of an injury. It looks like he's been slow to bounce back off that injury. I think he's come on in recent weeks to a degree. But that's the worry I would have with Brees, is if his tape this year doesn't match up to what it was last year, I think you've got to be a little hesitant to be picking him in the top 10. Herbicide, I feel the same way about Brooks. Brooks and Taylor, not impressed. I don't think I would extend either of them. I wouldn't either at this point, Herbicide. I would move Brooks into his last year, or what would be his, I guess this is his technically, 3rd year. So 4th year of his rookie deal. And he's just locked into his rookie deal. That's absolutely the route that I would go with it at this point. And not on Taylor either on that one. No, sirree, bobber. Osama Ben Diesel with another $5 donation. Thank you for the triple donos tonight, Osama. You are awesome, brother. Says Schneider has revealed his backup plan if the Hawks miss out on Geno. Bring back E.J. Manuel. The 2013 draft philosophy got its first golden nugget. There you go. Osama, of course, referencing John Schneider's fascination with that 2013 draft class, those early first rounders, as we've seemingly tried to grab every single one of them at one point or another. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the backup plan is if the Geno cost does become too much, Osama. If he starts to command too much on the open market, Seattle says, we don't want to go back into that lane. What is the backup plan? Is it to take the quarterback early at that point? Is there another veteran out there on the market they might look at? Do you maybe even go to Drew Lock and say, let's bring back Lock on a Geno Smith-like deal from this past year and roll with him? I think it'd be very interesting. Very interesting variety of different ways to go there, Osama. But I do think Geno is going to be option A and pretty solidly option A for this front office. Thank you for the donations, though, man. I really do appreciate it. Robbie Red says, love the channel. Thank you, Robbie Red. I appreciate you, man. Very kind of you to say. Sam the Great says, not sold on any quarterback. Time for a paycheck, Geno. That's it. I'm with it. That's where I'm landing at with it too, Sam. I'm just not sold on any of these guys yet. I like Levis. I think Levis could come here and be fine and be successful, but I don't like the question marks that come with him at this point. I don't like how young CJ Stroud is. I think he's going to take some time to develop. I think Bryce Young's too small. Hendon Hooker would be interesting, but where do I got to take him at to bring him in? And is he going to be able to run this complex offense versus the offense he's run at Tennessee and hit the ground running here as well? This comes back to Geno to me at the end of the day. It all boils down to kind of let's just go with Geno. Jordan says Levis could be a hidden gem with the right team. He really could. If he's put in a position to succeed, he's going to be a vastly better quarterback than what he's been. Sam the Great says if Haniger is healthy when he's good. Yeah, I mean, he came back healthy this year, and he didn't do all that great this year into the 230 or something. I mean, he's been good in the past, but I don't know. Nick, are we thinking Locke has interest from other teams in free agency? He might. I think, Nick, one thing you have to think about is the NFL is a copycat league. Part of the reason why the Broncos make the trade for Wilson is the success that goes on with Brady moving to Tampa Bay and Stafford going to the Rams. Likewise, Geno Smith having the success he's having this year may have a team influenced into the thinking, let's go with a Drew Lock and sign him to a Geno deal and have him compete with a young quarterback, and let's roll that way. So I think there will be some free agent interest in him. What the cost is, how high the price goes, I don't know on that. That's hard to say. But yeah, there'll be something out there for him. Ender says, how's our D going to stop Jacobs? Ender, you just got to stay out of those four-man fronts. It's those wonky two-man fronts. You re-put them back in this last week against Tampa Bay because you were thinking they were going to do more passing than they did. You didn't think they were going to commit to the running game like they committed. And so you ended up going with those two-man fronts with the outside linebackers on the outside, and there were some big holes for the Buccaneers to gash at that point. When Seattle's gone to the 3-4 base defense, they've done a lot better job at stopping the run. Jacobs is a grinder. He's going to get in there and get you the 3 yards in a cloud of dust kind of carries over and over again. So they just got to remain disciplined in their gaps. They got to stick with the 3-4 defense, just run with that. And I think you'll see them have a lot easier time in stopping the run than what you saw this last week. Wayne says, I'm all for re-signing him at the right price. What am I talking about? He makes more in one season than I will in my whole life. You're talking about Geno Smith? Yeah, I'm in the same boat on that. Sorry, texting something real quick. I don't think we're going to have a problem with Jacob Sender. I don't. Bobby Savage Hills is center, inside linebacker, D lineman are the things we probably need to address, right? I think that's the consensus, Bobby. I've probably seen about a dozen comments even on just this chat alone those are the basic 3 that you see get included in that particular mix. It would seem like we're keeping Geno for at least the next 2 to 3 years, but perhaps it's still possible to draft Levis. I do think you're going to be in a position to draft potentially Levis, because if he has done one thing to help the Seahawks get their hands on him here this year is he's removed himself from being a consensus top 3 pick, which does probably mean he falls somewhere into the deeper realms of the top 10, which then puts him into the Seattle Seahawks target signs if they do like him that much. So there's still a way you could end up taking him here with how high the selection's been from the Broncos, and then with his performance lapsing a little bit this season. It's not the best of scenarios to end up landing a guy like Levis, but it could lead to that path nonetheless. Herbicide, Geno will be fine for the next few years. I think we could skip drafting a quarterback and we'd be okay. I agree. I mean, you could skip and bring back Locke if you really wanted to. But Gino's got the contract. I think that's the way to go. Bobby Savage Hill, this is the same way I go with it. When you look at all of the options here that are available, when you look how well this team's performing, which is that you're leading the division in one of the toughest divisions in football, you're leading that division over halfway into the season. In a year you're rebuilding, in a year where you have $44 million of dead money. What happens when I add 4 picks in the 2 rounds, two of those picks being very high picks in those particular rounds, top 5, top 10 first round pick? What happens when I don't have the dead money and I've got $46 extra million? So think about this, folks, in these terms. Not only do you have $46 million of money that you have created for next year, right, in cap space in next offseason, you have $44 million of dead money this year that comes off the books that you gain. Now, some of that's eaten up, I know, but that's rather than from this year operating from the disparity of being 20% behind what everybody else has a salary cap because of that dead money, you get that $44 million off. It's almost like in a lot of ways, almost gaining like $80 million a little bit in cap space a little bit because you truly get to use all of the cap space up. You're not throwing it to other things versus this team and how well it's done operating behind that particular 8 ball. And so when I look at that, when I look at all you can inject into this team into the future and what Gino's gotten from this team as it is right now with 2 rookie tackles on the outside, with less than certainty up front for him in the interior of that offensive line, I go, keep adding to that, sign to a contract, and let's see if we can take this to the Super Bowl. That's the cleanest, clearest path to me, in my opinion. Wayne says Sewell's Aaron Curry all over again. I see the same kind of stuff. And when Sewell bites on a run fake in play action, Sewell bites all the way down. He's like a dog biting down on that branch and you can't get him to let go. It's like drop back in coverage. Drop back in coverage, Noah. Get back there, Noah. Get back. Stop taking the steps forward. It's not a run play. Go watch the Georgia tape. Georgia had him stepping all over the place in different wrong directions. And yeah, unfortunately with Aaron Curry, that was a little bit of his part and parcel part of his game is that he just instinctually wise could not read the play for where it was going and was always flowing in the wrong direction, away from the action at times. Zero, I like Henry to Oto from Alabama as well. Him and Trenton Simpson I've had as 2 of my higher end linebackers in this draft. I've heard there's some injury situations with him that could be worrisome, but I do like him what he's shown on the field. Isaiah Folksy. Let me add him here as well. Isaiah, he's got a cool name. I'll check him out. Mr. Isaac, how you doing, man? It's good to see you in the chat. Zal says, I hope we get Folksy in the second round, or if he's early second round like Luke Wilper from Ohio State. He's a hell of a center. Let me add that one to my list too, man. Luke, you got the goods here tonight, Zal. Whippler. All right. Mike says Eagles got exposed. Keys on why they lost other than the end game penalties. I don't know if we can go at the point into saying that they're exposed at this point, Mike, in that respect of things. I think that the argument made about the level of competition they're going to deal with in the course of this year and that them not being truly tested and sort of, gone through the fire, so to speak, to sort of earn their status to where they're going to be versus being one of those teams that's been kind of a front runner all year and just kind of allowed to lean on teams a little bit in their approach of things. I think that there's more to that than there is to the level of them being exposed. Teams play at their varying levels as far as how good and bad they are usually throughout the course of the year. It's really rare a team is just going to be amazing throughout the whole season and they stay at that pace throughout. Usually the teams that'll start out amazing do have some kind of dip or go down to a lower state versus where they've started. Doesn't mean they don't get in the playoffs. Doesn't mean that they don't still maybe get the first round bye, but it does it does mean I think they're going to be less than what they are. So I don't think that there's necessarily something that's going to expose them, Mike, because of the fact that they have solid personnel and the offense, the head coach there gets that offense moving. He knows how to get those guys in the best positions to get the most out of it, would seem, and that would include Jalen Hurts. For me, though, it's going to come to, are they playing their best ball in December, January, and can Jalen Hurts sling it? Because teams are going to get in the playoffs, they're going to shut down that running attack, and it's going to be on Jalen to then have to pass and throw the ball. I don't think he's got a good enough arm if it's going to be leaned on him to have to carry the day. I think that's where you expose him. That's where you go and get him. JG says, what about Jackson Smith Jibba from in the third round, or third wide receiver in the second or third round? That'd be okay with value for him a little bit. I mean, I'm not as high on him as some of the recent Ohio State receivers that have come out, but he knows how to play the position. He's got reasonably good speed and quickness. Doesn't always seem to get the most separation in his route running to me. And I think his hands have been a little bit up and down at times this year. Just a little bit. I could be off on that. I haven't done the deep dive assessment on him, but that sounds a lot about the right value for where he's going to go, from what I've heard. Or besides this, there isn't a great center this year. Third round is where the top one is supposed to go. Yeah, that could be the case. We'll see. Sometimes you can get a pretty good center still in the third round at that point. So even though they might not be the most amazing of amazing guys. Zalzero says he's underrated linebacker. I'm telling you, Drew Sanders is similar to BBK, but bigger. But BBK has burned his NFL career. Yeah, and I think when you say bigger, he's significant. The one thing I'll say about Drew Sanders now is he is significantly bigger to BBK. BBK is 5'10". Drew Sanders is probably 6'2", 6'3", maybe even. He's an NFL-sized guy, no doubt about that. I'm with it, Zal. I'm with it. I need to go find the tape that jumps out to me on him before I can kind of praise him up. So I'm on the hunt, and he's got the size to do it. I'm looking for more flash from him on the football field at times. Noah says, with Kobe's struggles in the slot, do you think Brown gets snaps after being acclimated? Pretty good before injury last year. I think he'll be in the competition, Noah. I think his skill set is best put on the outside, despite the fact he's actually a little bit shorter. But this is a situation too, Noah, that leans back to best man on the field. The guy that's the best man for the job, you let him play, even if your long-term outlook is to have Trey Brown on the outside. Kobe's taken his lumps from the slot. I think I give the kid a little bit of a measure of patience in how I look at his performance, because he's playing the slot for the first time in his career and he's really not built to be out there. I don't know if Trey Brown's built to play the slot either. This really comes down to there just being a lack of very good options there at that particular position this season as it stands a little bit. I think the team was maybe hoping for a little bit more of a development from an Ugo Madi or a Marquise Blair, or even Justin Coleman returning and coming somewhere near to close to his form from 2018. So you're just kind of stuck, I think, with what it is right now. But Kobe might get better as time goes along. And the one thing he is provide Noah is an ability to at least generate fumbles, right? So if you do end out this year with Kobe from the slot necessarily performing below league average as a slot corner, and yet he's also able to generate 8-9 fumbles in addition to that, I think that you do like a little bit of what he's bringing to the field, at least from that aspect of things. It's not all kind of a negative at that point. But I get where you're coming from. I do on that. Robert Coppersmith, if they could use some help in the middle of the defensive line and safety. Indeed, Robert, yeah. Hard to put much into the safety position with the two guys you're spending money on, but you may very well want to do it because you need some injury insurance, especially with Brian Neal being a free agent. Garth Knight with the $5 donation. Thank you, Garth. I appreciate it. It says, Orange Cat, you've been amazing. I don't know why I'm here other than to protect Gino. Still, I trust your Orange Cat's wisdom to guide Brando's channel. Well, she's a good guide. She's a good guide. Here, we'll get a little kitty yell here for you here. Here's a kitty cry. It's a kitty war cry. What? Am I waking you up and that's annoying you? Okay, I'll stop then. Okay. It's been about an hour. I figured give you a little love. Hmm? Okay. I'll let you sleep. That was for you, Garth. That was for you. Wayne says Quentin Johnson's a beast. I'll check him out. Wayne says, folks, let's like, subscribe if you've not already. Thank you, Wayne, for reminding me of that. If you haven't already, please do me this favor, folks. Hit that like button. Small, little, simple thing. Does help this channel out. It's part of what's driven us on this road to nearly doubling the subscriber count in this 1 year as it's going to end up settling out to, is because you guys are hitting that like button and pushing me out onto the algorithm there with YouTube. So hit that like button if you could. And if you are not subscribed, help me get up to 10,000. We started out before the show merely 80 away from the 10K mark. Herbicide says Uchenna and Bijo Ojolari at outside linebacker and Simpson and Brooks at inside linebacker. That'd be a pretty nice quad group right there. I could go for that. Megan says, B, we can look at the numbers, Craig versus Soren, but you won't change my mind. I know, but I almost feel like it's outside factors driving the Jimmy Zorn love, Megan. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Emmett says, I would offer our 7th round pick, I think you mean the 7th pick in the first round for 2 extra first round picks. I'd be open to it too, Emmett. I would. I think it's not a bad path to go. Just keep building on those initial assets. Amari Taylor says, do I think Anthony Richardson will enter the draft this year? I kind of think he will, to get the clock running. You know, quarterbacks really, you want to get the rookie contract running, because then once you get into 2nd, 3rd, 4th deals, that's where you start to really make your money. And if he's got to have a year of development, why not just have that development on an NFL roster? So I do think that he ends up making the call to come out in the draft. I do. He does need another year of development. Hell, you could say he needs another 2 years of development. I don't think he's anywhere near ready to be on the NFL football field, but he is probably one of the most talented, if not the most purely talented player at the quarterback position in this draft. When you just talk about pure raw skill set and everything that he brings to the table. He's just not a natural quarterback at the position. Like CJ Stroud, you know, is a maestro back there in the way that he, you know, operates in the pocket and the way he deals things. Richardson's not in that kind of class of things, but yeah, I could see that happening. Herbicide says JL Skinner is the only one catching my eye. I think I did take a look at him. He's either on my list or I did look at him. JL Skinner. I have looked at this kid. Boise State strong safety, vicious hitter, great form tackler who can lay a hit cleanly and still come close to depleting. Safeties, he's played both at Boise State. They play the safety position a little interchangeably. So he's done both free safety, strong safety stuff. Way better coming downhill than backing up, I'll say. So you run him probably playing more purely strong safety more often than not. He does have tight hips, not the most fluid athlete. Unplanned stop and starts can be slow for him. He has to have time to plan ahead. Like, I'm going to jump this route, and then it's smoother and quicker. So he's a little slow to react in coverage. So there's some things to his game I really like. There's some stuff he's got to still kind of clean up too. I worry about him in coverage a little bit, Herbicide. Zero, in terms of quiet quarterback sleepers, I do love Tanner McKee and Devin Leary. Not many are hyping as much as Young, Stroud, Levis, Jefferson, Hooker, or Richardson. Leary, notably, I like more than most. Leary's all right. He's okay. I watched a little bit of his tape. Tanner's got a really big wind-up, but he's got a big arm out of Stanford, and Seattle may be interested in him and how they look at him, but he's definitely kind of big and awkward at times, but he's got a good arm. Kind of reminds me a little bit of the Jacob Eason thing with him a bit. Chad Hart says Seahawks and Jets in the Super Bowl are in my nuts. Chad, that would be amazing, man. Hey, you know, I don't see the Jets having an opportunity to get to the Super Bowl this year, despite how good that team is playing. You know, their quarterback position, I think, is going to hold them back throughout the course of this year at some point or another. I'm just not a Wilson believer. I don't think he's going to get there here over the course of this year. And that's going to be a part, I think, of that team that eventually does be enough to hold them back. And then you look at them too, the offensive line standpoint, losing Vera Tucker for the year, losing Mike and Becton for the year. I think that did kind of hinder them a little bit on their upside. They'll probably maybe slide into the back door of the playoffs this year, be that last team in the AFC to get in, maybe. But no, they wouldn't. They're not going to be facing us. We're going to have to take on the Chiefs in the Super Bowl this year, unfortunately, or fortunately. Wayne says you win with a good D and a strong running game. Indeed, you do, Wayne. That's the approach of this team now and into the future. Part of why having the need for a superstar quarterback is not as great in the structure of how we build this team into the future. Seahawks Country says Trey Brown hopefully come back clutch. Hopefully so, man. It's going to be hard, though, Seahawks country, because you got to have a path of where to put him. I mean, I can see them setting him out there on dime defense at times maybe. But even that, Ryan Neal's played really well for you in dime, and then you put Josh Jones at strong safety and made Neal the fourth corner. Do you take Mike Jackson off the football field? Jackson's played really good football this year. As good as Trey was last year, it's hard to take off Jackson, who's been not only good in coverage, but also a good tackler, good in the run game. Probably better than what Trey Brown gives you in those elements of things. It's going to be a tough call. No easy answers there. Cool Breeze, Brando, what's the realistic chance we're able to restructure Jamal? I don't think that there's a high chance that they restructure him. I think that it's single percentage points that you're going to be able to pull that off. Because he's not going to want to take any less money. And Seattle's not going to want to restructure his deal to push dead money down the end where they're signing themselves up to a longer period of time for Adams at this point, which is what you would do by restructuring. So not any real chance of that. Herbicide says, to be fair though, this is Uchenna's best year. Yeah, but it's his best year, making sense that he's on a rise, right, Herbicide? Because he was a young guy who came into this league at 21 years old, who was raw, who was going to take his time to develop. I don't think Darrell Taylor came in the league at an equally young of age. And Uchenna has gotten better every year of his career. The career highs that he's right now matching and having that career year from are now improving upon the career highs from last year with the Chargers. So Uchenna is still on an ascent. Darrell Taylor's not giving you any of that kind of ascent. You never saw at any point in career of Uchenna with him going backwards. It's only him being going forward and improving steadily. Albeit not huge jumps of improvement. It's been him improving. Zao says, my real problem with Darrell Taylor is he's consistently outrunning the pocket and even gets pushed off the rush and the quarterback steps in the pocket. He has the ability to get the quarterback, but he just runs out. Yeah, but some of this comes into the fact that he doesn't have the secondary to go back to, Zao. Like, he doesn't have the counter inside. He doesn't have a spin move. He's not going to go across the guy's face and rip across and then, do a little rip move up to get by. And so tackles know that he's not going inside, so they can really cheat out to the edge and get out there to meet him. And then, as I like to call it, kick him out the back of the pocket, kick him out the club, essentially. You get the guy rounding the edge. It looks pretty. He looks fast. He looks quick. But then all the tackle merely has to do is just get a gentle arm and swing him right out the back of the pocket because he's just using Darrell Taylor's momentum against him at that point. And that's what you see with him. And the correction to that is him becoming more refined in his pass rush to be able to counter the inside, to not allow the tackle to be able to cheat to the edge. But Darrell Taylor doesn't have that in his game. And that's going to take like an off season to a couple of years of development / it very well may very well not develop in his game when it's all said and done. Big Country, what's up, man? I know you're one of my baseball folks, too. We're going to be doing a 3 p.m. Mariner stream over on the Crow's Nest tomorrow. So hopefully I see you over there tomorrow as well. Bobby Savage, thing is, me or others reportedly were talking about Levis by saying he's better than you think because of X and Y, because hype, which creates the misinterpretation that we're saying he's the next Rodgers. Agreed. It's always the tough part, Bobby Savage Hill, of finding the place of nuance on these kind of discussions, especially with a player like that, because it's people kind of want to paint it in a way like that. And I agree with you. With Levis, this is a very tough assessment, and it's not clear cut. I'm not saying the guy is in that Rodgers level of talent. I just like his game a lot. I like what he could supply. I like what he's been building on from college to come here, but there are questions. He is playing wild, and I like what you said with that. He's better than the X's and O's are kind of showing you on the field right now. Mike Skinner, what's the news on Alton Robinson? He was good previous years. Is there a fit for him on the defense? I don't really see it right now with Irvin playing as well as he is. To me, Bruce has been better than Darrell Taylor. If there's anybody whose snaps need to be removed at this point in favor of Alton Robinson coming back, it would be Darrell Taylor. It wouldn't be Bruce Irvin's snaps. So I don't know. It's not as clear cut of where the path is for him on it. Where is he health-wise here right now? You really only need the 4-man rotation as it sits. So who's the one who goes out in favor of him? Do you sit Bruce Irvin just because Bruce 35? I wouldn't do that. Irvin's giving you more impact there from that side at that point. You got to let the best man ride at this point, especially being a team that's on top of the division. Seahawks Country says the Raiders have a 0% chance to win next. You said next year, I think you mean. Next week, I think you mean. Big Country says Levis needs everything to be perfect at the start. I don't know what teams offers that. Well, Seattle would be very close to offering something to what would help him out. I don't know if he needs everything perfect. He just needs not to be having everything in disarray, right? There's two different ends of the scope here. There's one end of the scope that's Kentucky, where everything is miserable right now. Offensive line, he's throwing to freshman wide receivers. He's got even his star running back's been out half of this year and just finally came back from injury. His defense is not the greatest, right? So they're going to give up a lot of points, which is going to cause him to have to score a lot of points to keep up with the teams opposite him. He's playing in a really tough conference. I think everything is very much as imperfect almost a state as you could ask for a quarterback who's playing in that kind of conference he is, versus everything being perfect for a quarterback at the pro level and great in front of him. I think if you found a happy medium there with Levis, you would get a lot better performing Levis than what he has shown out at college. And Bobby Savage, don't shut up about Levis. I like that you're hyping up Levis. I think you're on the right track here in what you're talking about. JP Hinks, has Goodwin been a surprise to you? Time to drop Eskridge? Yes, rookie contract, but is he taking up a spot? Sadly, he is not NFL built. And depth possible. Linebacker, if any, worth a look. Keep draft capital. I'm willing to bring back Goodwin definitely on another deal at this point. I've been very happy with what I've seen from him. I don't think he'll cost a tremendous amount. And quite frankly, I've in watching Eskridge the last couple of years, I'm not really getting it. Outside of him being a second round pick, I'm not getting it in what he's showing you on the football field to determine the fact that he should have a roster spot here or be on the NFL. I think you can get better receivers out there than what he's given you. He doesn't run really good routes. I don't think he has particularly good hands. The team does not seem committed to utilizing him in fly sweeps or bubble screens. Can any of you remember one bubble screen that Eskridge has gotten this year so far? I can't. Or it's only maybe been one in 10 games. So if you're not going to use the gadget type receiver in the offense, and he doesn't have a fit in the offense as a traditional wide receiver, I'm not really sure of what the pathway is going forward for Eskridge on this roster. Yalric V says, I think we tag Geno for a year or two, or even 3, but then trade him in the end. It's possible. It's a possibility. Especially if some team's trying to offer him, they think, Geno doesn't want to sign a contract because he thinks he's going to get a big deal in the open markets. He doesn't want to just let him walk. Could be the way they go. Could be. Seahawks Country says, I think the Eagles are getting Will Anderson. Well, they are one of those teams like us that has a first round pick that they're looking at that's pretty tasty too as well from the Saints. And the Saints are probably not getting any better anytime soon as well. Good point. Sal Zero says, to be fair, if Levis does amazing in the Senior Bowl, he's getting picked. We all know Schneider in Senior Bowls. That's true. And that's my bold statement. Even outside of looking at him in the Senior Bowl or anything else, my bold prediction for you guys is that Levis, not just us, but whoever, is going to be picked in the top 10 of this next draft. Yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to restructure Diggs and Adams' contract. They're not. Neither is going to give up any money. And there's not a lot of reason to have to restructure their deal because you have cap space. Antoine and Elizabeth Cobb, what are your thoughts on Hawks drafting the running back from Alabama? I like him all right. There's three other running backs I like better, Antoine. I mean, he's fast, runs pretty hard. There's not a lot of history of Alabama running backs necessarily being great at the pro level, absent a Henry. There's a lot of guys that have kind of been just so-so. He doesn't get me as excited. Charbonnet, I like with UCLA better. I definitely like the kid in Texas a little bit better. He's my number one guy, obviously. And then I even like the kid out of Ohio State a little bit better than the Alabama one. And then maybe you'd get to him as maybe the 4th or 5th guy on my list on that. But he's good. There's not a lot of wow factor to me with him. He's just really good and solid. Kind of your typical Alabama back, or just boringly good, boringly productive. Emmett21 says, we don't need defensive backs either. People know Tariq and Kobe are the future, especially Tariq, superstar in the making right now. It's true. It's not a need, not an absolute need. Garth Knight with a $5 donation. Thank you, Garth. It says, Brando, can you rank Jamal Adams' lover boys from 1 through 3? I'd love to talk to them personally. I'll approach with what they seem smart when that is not the case. I don't know. I'm not seeing a lot of love for Jamal Adams in the chat necessarily. So I'll have to, maybe I'm missing it down lower in the chat, but I think people were pretty low on Jamal Adams overall. I just think you can't get out from under the contract. I think if the team could, Garth, if they get out from under it right now this offseason, I think they very well would, even with all the draft capital they gave up for the guy. But it's going to be at least, I think, another year. I do believe so. M21, I agree. We do need a defensive tackle. I don't think Al Woods is going to play another season at 36. I mean, maybe he's still playing pretty good, but I think he's going to probably eventually call it a day. Seahawks country, I hope Broncos don't win. Me too. The better draft pick, the better. Herbicide, I thought Creed won the second. Didn't he still go in the second round? I thought Creed Humphrey won the second. Syjan says, Russ isn't the same guy. I'm hearing people saying I feel sorry for him. He knew he effed up when he left. Yeah, I don't have a lot of feeling sorry for Russ in my heart. You know what I mean? I don't have a lot of that myself. I didn't think it was going to get to this point with him where he's at, but he dug his own grave in this situation, for lack of a better term. Right in the cut, I would love to re-sign Neal if we can. The cost is going to be interesting in what he's going to command. You're already paying more at the safety position than any other team in the NFL, I think by a fairly wide margin. It does become a little bit of, okay, we're a little bit too much cost maybe into the safety position, but he's making it hard not to at least consider it. Chewy Suarez says the pass rush needs to stop being inconsistent or else we are going to lose every game. Yeah, I think part of where I think you would find that the inconsistencies in the pass rush, Chewy, first begin with the team unable to stop the run, and then there becomes no pass rush. And if they stop the run, then you're going to see them be a lot better at getting teams one-dimensional, and then that pass rush is going to look a lot better to what it's looked like in a lot of the games this season. It's made them one of the better teams in the league at getting sacks out there. But that's the first key, Chewy, oddly enough, is to me it's stopping the run. Because it seems like once they stop the run, they end up having to dedicate so much more resources to then locking the run game in, that then exposes them not only in the passing game with open holes in the zone, but also precludes the defensive linemen from getting their pass rush because they're trying to stay under control against the run first and foremost. JP Hinks, Brandon, how bad do you want the Raiders with a win this weekend? Laughing out loud, go Raiders. I've never been more in favor of the Raiders winning a football game than this upcoming week in my life. I have had a long hate for Raiders going back to the 80s when my fandom was born and we were in the AFC West. But those dirty, nasty, rotten Pirates, those smelly, filthy degenerates need to go out there and take care of business this week. Daryl Chapman, if anything, I hope the Eagles got the number 1 pick and Broncos find us a way to score 7 points a game. It will leave us to take Stroud. Imagine how good that would be. That would be an interesting way to go, Daryl. You end up with that second pick, but you're able to still do it. I think the Eagles would move that pick if they did, though, Daryl. I think they would end up flipping it. That general manager is too smart. That's how he picked up this pick this year, was flipping back a couple of selections to pick up the extra first-round pick. And I think he would absolutely go back to that well once again. So I think that sounds good on the surface of it, but I think whoever picked that first pick ahead of us, if they aren't taking Stroud, they're going to flip that pick to go then have somebody else, Daryl, go pick up that pick, go take Stroud with that number 1 selection. Herbicide says, could we use K9 to do jet sweeps? Ben have this fantasy where he can catch the ball and do other things. He's so fast. They've tried to do it a little bit, Herbicide, with that. When they run that, they'll run with like Geno and shotgun, and then they'll have DJ Dallas next to him, and then they'll have Walker line up as a wide receiver and come back post-snap across the formation in that fly sweep role. It's a little predictable when he comes out on the field and you do that. You're not going to probably have them running routes when you have 2 running backs on the field. So I don't like the predictability of how they do that. I don't know why you don't just use D. Eskridge to do that stuff. That's the whole reason you got Eskridge, was that's what you need in this offense. You needed a fly sweep guy. It's a common part of what the Rams do. Why you don't just have Eskridge doing it week after week, 4 or 5 times a game, I don't know. Because then at least Eskridge also does give you the threat of a wide receiver on the field when that is the case. But the team just has not remained committed to it, oddly enough. Not sure why. Sigen says, I'm very happy with the Seahawks in the past 5 weeks. Brown ready to go, increases the defense, is slowing down the opponent's offense. Barton, I'll give him time. I'm definitely a lot of love being given to Barton here over this week. Probably more love than I've seen Barton given in quite a bit of time. It is notable that he's still coming out of this game from PFF, wasn't really well rated, and he is still highly struggling against the run game. But yeah, Trey Brown's going to help this team out, at the very least from a depth standpoint. Should anything happen in any of our outside corners, you've got him to call upon, and that can help. That can only help, especially when you're on the other side of the injury situation this year than where you've been in past years, where many times in years we've been just decimated at injuries, certainly at certain positional groups come this time of the year. It's good to see that we're not this season. Yalrick says, I love seeing Aaron Rodgers in a blue 24. Yeah, Aaron was rocking a Marshawn Lynch Seahawks jersey this week. Got everybody in a way. In a way. Tristan Langlas, what position should Seattle focus on in the first round this year with both picks? Tristan, I'm a little anti going at attacking with just certain selections I have to take because my real philosophy is driven by best player available. And I think that if I get locked in on saying we need to select to this position and we need to select to that position, I think that takes you as far away from best player available as a philosophy as you can possibly get. And I think you've had too many problems in recent years of having bad drafts that were built on the back of picking for just a need, picking for, oh, we need this on the team and we need that. So let's get this guy and this guy. And it's less than about who's just the best guy on your board at that point. And when you start stretching for need, you start taking less talented players and you have a less talented team on the other end of it. So best player available, whoever's the best guy out there. I will say, Tristan, from a need standpoint, defensive tackle, inside linebacker, center, right guard, these are the positions that stand out as the biggest needs coming into this draft, unless we deal with them in free agency. Pedro says, our pass rush was non-existent on Sunday. Yep, it was. But again, the pass rush of non-existence comes from two different things this past Sunday. Number one, Tom Brady is going to be one of the toughest people in the nation, one of the toughest people in the NFL to pass rush against. So let's acknowledge this with Tom. He's not a guy that's going to hold on to the ball. He's going to get the ball out of his hands. There's been a common stat that I point out to for years with a guy like Russell Wilson, and some of his struggles is being that he holds on to the ball too long in the pocket. He'll average 3 seconds plus in the pocket and holding on to the ball, where a guy like Tom Brady will get the ball out in 2.6 seconds, which may not seem like a large period of time, but it is a big deal. That extra half second, essentially, Brady's getting that ball out. So he's just not going to give you the time to get to him naturally. You've got to get there essentially way too fast as a pass rusher, whereas other quarterbacks might hold on to the ball a little bit longer because they can trust their feet and they are a little bit more mobile. But then the other part of this is the run game. And Pedro, you don't stop the run first, that's going to lead to problems in the pass rush. And that's what happened in this game. If they get that part better, mark my words, the pass rush will be good. You're not going to see this team, in my opinion, this year, have a team that they hold 20 carries for 60 yards, and then they're not getting any pass rush on the other end of it. That's where you'll see a team getting 3, 4, 5, 6 sacks in a particular game if they're handling business on the front end. But that's the part that they didn't take care of this last Sunday. D-Nugget, Crow's Nest me up, son? Hell yeah. Tomorrow, D-Nugget, we're going to be doing Crow's Nest at 3 o'clock tomorrow on the other channel. I promise. Herbicide, I think Trey is more a natural nickel back than the Blue Mamba. He might be. The good news is that they're going to find this out in practice because no doubt he's going to get some run over there with how well Michael's played, and then the coaching staff will give him a look. So I'll lean on them and whatever they want to decide to do with it. But it's possible. Yeah, Big Country, I got to get on there and do a stream. I've been meaning to, man. Been a little lazy with it. D-Nugget, everyone, please like for the sake of the good Lord, please like this chat for the illustrious Brando. Thank you, D-Nugget, for mentioning that, man. AI says Eskridge is a waste of a roster space. What a waste of draft pick. Yeah. Odd draft pick, one that you make for a guy again, they're just... My initial 3 picks, is I still stay. If you go back and you look at the reactions I had with LJ Collier, Jordan Brooks, and D. Eskridge, and the draft night assessments I made to them, if you look at that, I think those things have still aligned very much to what I saw on draft night. The thing that I didn't see on draft night was the lack of usage of Eskridge in what he does well. I knew what he didn't do well. You're not going to be able to ask Eskridge to play conventional wide receiver. He's not an outside wide receiver. He doesn't run good routes. He doesn't have particularly good hands. Didn't mean that there wasn't a way to find some productivity for the kid. And the Seahawks have not sought out to find that manner for him. Certainly the injury situation has hurt this, but the fact that he's not your full-time punt and kick returner rather than just your kick returner. The fact that he can't crack past Goodwin and or at times even a Penny Hart when he's healthy on getting on the field is an eye-opener. And I don't know if it's to the point of a wasted roster space, but the team needs to figure out what they want to do with this kid and where their approach is going to be at with them and what they want to try to do with them. Because this seems to be more of a, I don't know, this ain't working. Well, that ain't working. All right, well, let's try with this maybe a little bit. And that's really not much of a vision or approach in the way they're going about that. I don't think Eskridge is going to have much trade value. Wayne says, geez, does Brando stream for 6 hours? I need a bio break. Wayne, I go on NFL game day, Wayne. I do 9 hours, man. So, yeah, I go hard. Go hard with it. Saijan Raiders are bloody wankers, man. Dirty, filthy pirates. Filthy pirates. Yeah, big country. I don't know if the Raiders are going to pull it off. They're looking as bad a shape as the Broncos are in. They're looking like they might be in even worse shape. JP, you got that Raiders hate too, man? It's deeply embedded, isn't it? It may have been some 30 years ago, but it is deeply embedded. Seahawks coach says, I think the Panthers will get CJ Stroud or Bryce Young. I don't think they're drafting Levis. They want a high draft pick. I agree, man. They very well could end up taking a quarterback. Makes a lot of sense. A lot of love for Trey Brown as a nickel. I got a 30. I feel you on that. Uncle Bully-san, I am a Jamal Adams fan. Go presidential. We can't knock the man because he got hurt with the team. He wasn't hurt before our team. My man broke the safety record for sacks. Let's show him some love. Yeah, I mean, I'm in favor of seeing where he can go with this. Uncle Bully-san, I've been very happy with Jamal Adams on the field when he has played. I haven't been one of those folks that's knocked him for his play as far as saying, well, he can't cover. I think they put him in bad positions at times and not always put Jamal in the position to be successful when he's arrived here on the team. And some of that has to do with where the defense was more than what that was about where Jamal's game was. But the injury situation does make it hard to count on him going forward. And that's a little bit of, I think, where this discussion is really housed in Uncle Bully-san is, can you count on him? Should you just act like the strong safety position's fine? Should you not try to re-sign Ryan Neal as an insurance policy? And that's why I think the discussion is very pertinent in regards to Jamal Adams and the consideration of him going forward. I'm still hopeful for him. I still think that he's a really good player. But I also think that, availability is one of the bigger parts of the NFL. And he's a guy also showing some signs here, Uncle Bully-san, of kind of breaking down physically speaking. Mike Skinner, 6-4 going into the bye. Every Seahawks fan is taking that before the season started. Let's go Seahawks. That's why I call it Mike Skinner best case scenario. I don't think there's any way this team was going to come in through this bye at 11 and 9-1 or something along that line of things. To be 6-4 to me is the best case scenario is going into this year. And yeah, I think that no way anyone could have seen this being better than this. Nitro Hawk, the Packers gave up a passing touchdown to Derrick Henry. I've seen them do that before. Makes sense. Defenses are going to sell out for Henry, so you're going to get a guy clear up on the back end in running a route. I agree, Seahawks country. I think the Broncos are probably better than the Raiders. They're probably going to get it this week. As much as I want the Raiders to win it, as much as I like to see it. Guard Knight says, Tiascar, who gives S, seems like a Kevin Mitchell trade. No, I don't think so. Because Kevin Mitchell, you had the time, I think you thought you could see where maybe his best days were behind him. And at that time, Garth, there was a really extreme nature to when you usually traded for NL hitters to the AL. There was a monster drop off in their level of productivity. On top of Mitchell already starting to kind of, to me, regress. I don't think Tiascar has shown regression at this point necessarily. I think he's just turning 30 years old, so he's not super old. It's a good trade. gives them a little more consistency out there in right field, which is what they need. And remember, Garth, it's also about where that position's been at so far up until this point, and it's been their outfield last year was not good, outside of course, Julio. AI says, I remember I was mad each time too, especially skipping on Creed. Yeah, me too. That one still hurts. Uncle Boy San says, maybe Eskridge can play nickel or cornerback, laughing out loud. Well, you joke, Uncle Boy San, but this was one of the reasons that I had worries about Eskridge coming out of the draft, is I thought that it was a warning sign when you saw at college for a year, they tried to move him over to defensive back. I thought that was weird. Why would you have a guy talented enough to end up being a second-round receiver that in college, at a small college, at a college that doesn't exactly fill to the brim with talent, why are you for a year trying him out at defensive back? What should that maybe tell me? And what it was telling me is that maybe there were some natural elements to his game that wasn't based around being a receiver. And you're seeing that at times. He doesn't run routes like a normal receiver, doesn't catch the ball with ease, kind of fights him a little bit. But it's been tried before. Couldn't be worse, Uncle Billy, saw what we're getting from him out of wide receiver. Wayne says, question, what's your favorite Switch game? Zeldan fan here, waiting for Zelda 2. I'm an Xbox guy. So, I've been running Call of Duty strong here. I like the new Call of Duty game. In fact, after I get off the stream here tonight, I'm probably going to run a little bit with some boys online. So I've been kind of feeling that right now. I've been kind of liking that a little bit. Mad that I don't got my zombies on it, but it's all right. Megan says, I don't hate the Raiders, but if they were on fire in front of me, I would drink water in front of them. I would pour it out on the ground, Megan, just outside of the reach of their singed little fingers that were smoking. I'd be like, oh, as the water just dribbled out onto the ground. Yalrick says, I love Jamal Adams. I just think we paid too much and he hasn't been on the field enough to justify it. I think those are fair points. Hawks are the ace. Do we keep Penny next season? I think there's a good chance of it. Hawks are the ace. I really do. We know what we got in him. I don't think the cost is going to be high. You bring him in on a 1-year flyer deal, 1 year, $3 million, 1 year, $4 million deal. The cap will go up at that point to around $230 million. That's not a big hit to go and bring him back at that point. And then you have him as kind of an insurance policy for Kenneth Walker. I like that approach myself. Emma21, when will Raider fans understand that they are not a Super Bowl contender right now? I would hope that by now that's become clear for them, Emmett. I just look at that owner's face, Mark Davis, and I'm like, this is not a guy that's going to take anybody to the promised land. I know owners can only have to do so much, but that guy's not guiding anybody to jack diddly dandy. No way. So they just need to eventually sell the team for them to ever have any hope, unfortunately. I know it's not what Raider fans want to hear, but it's true in your heart. Much like the Cowboys fans know it's true in their heart, too, if they look deep inside themselves and like, we got to get rid of Jerry. Jerry's got to get out of here. Uncle Billy San says, I hear you, Brando. I love Jamal Adams. He's a good player, but also we have to sign Neal. He is kicking ass and he deserves to get signed. That's where I land with it too, Uncle Billy San. And it is what it is with it. I'm hopeful he can bounce back too, though. And as far as Jamal, I do like his play. I was never one of those folks, Uncle Billy San, who's going, oh, look at him getting beat when he's playing cover 3. Oh, look at him getting beat when he's playing cover 2. I never was on that board. I'm like, why are you putting Jamal Adams playing cover 3? Why are you having Jamal Adams playing cover 2 as a strong safety? He needs to be up in the box. He needs to be going forward. But hopefully they start to use him a little better. I think that was the plan this offseason coming into, was put him more in that position. We just didn't get a chance to see the fruits of it because, of course, he got hurt in that first game. Let's see, though. Seahawks country, how much Jamal getting paid? Mostly are all players on rookie contracts until 3 years? I'm not sure what you mean on that one, Seahawks country. Uncle Boy Son, I can't stand the Raiders, but I hope they beat the Ponies. Me too. Sam the Great says, I remember before the season, everyone thought the AFC West would be a powerhouse division. Ha! Yeah, it certainly didn't get there, did it? I think the Chargers are a little understandable where their guys just too many injuries, which is what knocked them down. But the other two teams, Broncos and Raiders, yeah, a lot of people had them way overhyped. Mike Skinner, I just prestiged in the new COD yesterday. It's good. So prestiging is like one of those ones, Mike, where I'm just like, as I've gotten old, like when I was a younger guy, like I'm going all the way. I'll prestige this out to the 9s. Then you get old and you're like, I don't want my guns to reset again. I want to dominate with what I got. you know? And I got a dominating setup right now in multiplayer. Like, I'm going out there and I'm like, it's awesome. Because I've been playing COD for so many years. I'm better at it than the other games that I play. So I'm able to go in there and get number one on the board a lot too. But I'm at 55 right now, Mike, so I got to decide if I want prestige or not tonight. It's a tough call. Tough call. Got a little snow in Green Bay. All right. We're in that time of year. Buffalo's about to get 6 feet. They got to move them. How about Buffalo? How about idiocracy at play on that one? You got a team that plays in all these snow games every year. They're going to finally build a $1.5 billion stadium, and they're choosing to make it an outdoor stadium. And they're going to lose 2 games this year where they got to go play in Detroit because they can't play outdoors because there's too much damn snow in Buffalo. Talk about just absolutely idiocracy. I mean, sometimes some of the moves, decisions that get made is just like, who is making this decision? Who thought this through? How did this get through a panel and a committee and multiple people? Megan says, I would place a bottle just out of their reach and kick it over B. I would give him a cup, Megan, but then it would be one of the cups that makes it dribble right out of the cup so you can't drink it. So when they try to drink it, it just falls out of the cup, like one of those trick cups. I'd give him one of those. And then watch their face, just laugh at their face in horror as they more desperately try to get the water into their mouth, but it's just not going. It just keeps dribbling out. Anderson says, happy to finally catch you live. Jalen Carter or William Anderson? Great question, Mr. Anderson. Mr. Anderson, it's good to see you live here with me as well. I am a Jalen Carter guy at this point. I do like Will Anderson still, but in watching some of the tape recently of Jalen Carter, I'm more leaning in that direction of things as far as the guy that I would be, I think, a little bit, he edges to me out just a little bit, Anderson, at this point. Uncle Bully says, Xbox guys unite. Me too, Brando. Yep, the Call of Duty, and you need to play Ragnarok. And if you haven't played God of War 4, to play that first. I'm not as much Uncle Bully saying. I've gotten older. I'm all in on just multiplayer games. So I like doing the battle royales or the CODs or COD zombies or just anything that's. But I like the multiplayer stuff. When I do the single player, I just kind of start to tune out and I get a little bit like bored with it. I know it's a beautiful game. I know the Ragnarok. I mean the God War. All those are just amazing games. People really love them. I just can't quite get into them. It lost me like a few years back where I just got more into just all about the multiplayer action. I like teaming up. Seahawks Country says, I don't think Jalen Carter won't be available for us. Well, if we're picking 3rd overall, Seahawks Country, you better believe he will be. Megan says, playing COD with Kyler B, asking for usual. Yes, I get on with Kyler, and this is the way that this is my contribution to my Hawks. I wear them out. I'm like, just one more, Kyler. We're on a win streak, man. No, you got the game plan fine. You know the Hawks run simplistic defenses. It'll be cool, dude. Let's go. You got 4 or 5 more games in you. No, it's only, is it 2? Feels like it's only like 10 at night, really, Kyler, right? Doesn't it feel like 10 like you're just warming up? You couldn't even sleep if you tried right now. Come on, let's go one more game. And he's like, all right. That's just my contributions outside the channel to my team. I just got to do what I got to do, you know? John Cheney says, it took Golden Tate 3 years to have 45 reception season, so hopefully Eskridge starts to get it together. Great point, man. Similar kind of to your point on that, John. Similar players maybe a little bit in some of the things that they need to clean up in their game over their time with the team to kind of get them where they need to go. I do think Tate was a little bit better of a little bit more of a natural route runner, and I do think that he had a little bit more better hands. He could high point the ball at times. Not consistently, but at times do that. I don't think Eskridge can do any of that. But your point still stands, and I think it's a great comparison on your part. And let's hope he can, man. Let's hope he can get it turned around. Wayne says, haircut challenge equals do the Mark Davis. Do the Mark Davis do. I don't think my wife would go for it. No, that's the type of thing that would make your woman leave you instantly. The Mark Davis do would make your woman leave screaming if you go that look. It instantly get a puffier face with that haircut, that Mark Davis look. It instantly gives you the pill face. And you don't want that look. That's not doing anybody any good. It's not doing him any good. He just don't care. He's too rich to care. And nobody wants to tell him. Uncle Bully saying, man, the Raiders still bug the hell out of me. Go ahead and ask me who was a better running back, Kurt Warner or Bo Jackson? Warner, of course. Well, I mean, if you talk about Warner prior to the ACL injury, year one of Warner, Uncle Bully saying, you might have a point on that one. I think Warner post-injury probably wasn't where Bo was, but you could maybe make the argument they're fairly close. You know, if you're just going measure for measure when he was healthy and Bo before the hip. But yeah, the Raider hate's still there for me too. As I say, it's like for me, it goes, my pecking order as it goes from the AFC West days is the most hated for me was the Broncos because of Elway and his donkey face. And then you had the Raiders, and then it was the Chiefs, and then it was the Chargers. That was the pecking order of hate. That was my pecking order of hate and animosity. Anderson says, if we luck out in a top 3 pick, hypothetically, always wish high. Oh, Anderson, it's possible, man. I mean, you're 7th right now, but there's 10 teams that are all at like 3 wins. So that fluctuation can go a variety of different places. And you could end out in that spot. There's no doubt about it. But I like Carter. Anderson's a little bit of a position that's not as much in need. That's a little bit of this where you're bringing him in and you already are feeling fairly well and good about Uchenna Nwosu, Darrell Taylor, Boye Mafe, Al Robinson. You've got some guys there. You look at your defensive line, that's where things are lacking. You need a defensive end on the 3-4 defense. And that's what Jalen Carter could give you. I think he could be, an impact player in that respect, right from that position. So I think he just helps out the team more. I think he's also just a little bit more refined from where Anderson is, who's a little more of a rawer prospect to me in his development. There's some, there's kind of some Darrell Taylor elements a little bit with Anderson and some of the simplified nature of his pass rush and how he goes about getting his business done. He's amazingly talented, so he's good at doing it nonetheless, but it does worry me a little bit on getting quick production and being a complete player and all that. Evan21 says, if we keep Jamal for one more year, which does seem the case, hopefully he comes back healthy and has a really good comeback year, or maybe he's back before the playoffs. Guess we'll find out. It's possible. It'd be cool if he could come back. That'd be awesome. And hopefully the guy can get it back. I feel bad for him. Just got a little snake bit on this injury situation. It's been a variety of different injuries, and the guy is tough as hell. I mean, he fought through those finger injuries, dislocating multiple times over last season before he had them fused together this offseason. And then it re-broke again in training camp. He said, put a cast on my hand. I want to play this year, damn it. So you can't argue the guy's toughness or want to get out there. It's not his fault in that respect of things. It's just bad luck. Megan says, Fallout 4 and its expansion packs for me, B. Well, there you go. I know that's another great game. I know that's another one of these days I'll get around to for sure, Megan. I've had too many friends who've recommended that one. Mike says the guns don't reset in this one. I haven't played it for over 8 years. I was surprised. Oh, okay, Mike. I'm going to have to prestige tonight then. Though kind of, Mike, I don't like prestiging too, because once you get into a lobby sometimes with players and they see you prestiged, you'll scare guys out of the lobbies. You want those sweet, tasty noobs that you can just, you can pilfer kills off of, who just run straight headlong into the battle constantly. And they start seeing that big rank up there. That kind of can scare some folks away a little bit. I do like the fact that the trash talk is so back in this COD. It's like old school, early 2000s chat, because you're hearing the other team across if you turn the mics on, and it's absolutely as toxic and horrible as I remember it. It's great too, though. I wouldn't expect anything less from COD. Garth Knight with a $5 donation. Thank you, Garth. If Jamal Adams was under a Seattle Christmas tree, I'd try life support before acting like it's a present. Well, thank you for all the donations, Garth. Yeah, it's probably a good way. You probably get the paddles out, right, Garth? You probably go, it might be good. Hold on, let's make sure the heart's beating first. Thank you, though, brother. I appreciate you. Chad Hart, they should have moved the Raiders to North Korea. I wouldn't put it by Mark Davis if he got a sweet enough deal. He's like, Kim Jones, he's offering me $1 billion, man. I get $1 billion just to move the team there. Yes, I'm going to do that. Dad would want this. Daddy Al would want this. Sam the Great, haven't played video games in ages. Used to stay up till 5 when I played COD. I like it. For me, it's my relaxation thing I like to do. It's also a way I've got, like me and my brother live apart from each other. He's down in California, so it's our way of being able to kind of meet up online, from a family sense of things too on top of it. But I like it, especially get a bunch of buddies in working together. You kind of don't get like anything like that in real life ever. So it's a little bit of a unique experience in that. That's why I like the multiplayers as much as anything, because you're just all kind of pulling together a little bit. Pulling together. Scooby Snacks, what's up, man? It's good to see you. Megan says, I would do that to anyone who says Dave Craig is better than Jim Zorn 2B. Is that a threat, Megan? Is that a threat? Yulrick says it's 10:30 here, but we have a good game for once. Nice. Did I miss a James Black deal there? Garth, be nice in the chat. Be nice in the chat. No going at the chatters. No going at the folks in the chat. Let's be cool. Uncle Boy saying, I would take the glass of water as the Raiders are burning and put it across the first down line, then tell their coach that he has to decide on one play to get it. They won't get it. Oh, you're actually going to give him a chance, Uncle Boy son. See, me and Megan are just saying, we're going to show absolutely no, we're not even going to give you a shot to get this drink, but you're actually giving him a chance. See, you got a kind heart, Uncle Boy son. We're being completely cold-blooded about it, but you're giving him a little bit of an opportunity. I like giving him a chance on it. I might give him a chance, but then if they could get it, there'd be like a trap door, and he's like, they get the first down, and then just as they go for the water, the trap door goes scoop, and the water drops right through it. Anderson says, how about these reports of Russ using audibles from Seattle? Apologize if you've already spoken about this, but the whole Russ and Denver storyline gets more embarrassing and enjoyable week by week. Yeah, I did talk a little bit about it earlier on this, Anderson, so I won't go too deep into it. Yep, there is these reports that he is using these audibles and everything else. They're coming from Tyler Columbus, who's a former offensive lineman with the Broncos, who theoretically has some kind of connections into the building or with some players that are still in the building. He is reporting that that there's more of a growing rift between Russell and Hackett, and that Russell's calling kind of his own plays, so to speak. That he's calling his own keywords at the line of scrimmage and his own checks, and that they're from his Seattle days. Hackett has denied the reports, the coach, that this is not what's going on. But, like I said, Columbus could very well be, connected in on this, Anderson. And part of what does to me give it a little bit of a tiny bit, at least, a measure of truthfulness here is the respect of, remember with Russell coming into the first game of the season, Anderson, he was using the same hand signs and hand signals that he'd used in Seattle. And Tyler Lockett caught it mic'd up mid-game. So this very well could have some truth to it. Is it happening a lot? Who knows on that? But I agree with you on this. I can't believe how this story continues to twist in this fashion for Russ. As bumpy a ride as this has been for him, the road is getting even rockier, it seems, the more the season goes along. And nothing that happens, almost every new thing that comes out, is just making it tougher and harder. And it's not even me trying to blame it on Russ. It's just almost like the momentum is moving so fast in this direction of things. It's just, it's kind of wild. It's kind of wild to watch. But I don't know I don't have a good explanation for it, Anderson. I don't even have a really good take on why this has gone this direction. Just absent that, Russell was kind of protected here in Seattle, and outside those protections of things now, he's kind of trying to find a space. And look, he's got things. It's not all on Russ here. So I don't want to make this thing. Hackett sucks as a coach. That offensive system has not been a good fit for him. He's had a horrible offensive line that then has been injured past being a bad pass protecting line. They've also then now had to have their backups in, so that's even gotten worse. His receivers are not necessarily getting open as well as they had in the past. So there's a lot of stuff outside of Russ for the Russ failures going on here, just outside of him not wearing an armband or calling bad signals at the line of scrimmage. But it is insane as a story, I'll tell you that. Jacob Chamberlain, what's the Seahawks chances of making it to the playoffs in your opinion? 70, I would go 75%, Jacob. Coach Carroll has in 11 years here in the back half of the schedule, the back half of seasons, Jacob, he's gone 61-28 since 2011. That's a 690 winning percentage over 11-year period. You want to go, well, okay, you're including the Legion of Boom in that. You got to take that was the special area. You got to remove that from this. Well, if you just take the last basically 5-year period, it's a 630 winning percentage. If you go 4-3, that's a 590 winning percentage. So below even what you've done in recent 5-year period, and definitely below what you've done in recent 10-year period. That still gets you to 10 wins. That still gets you into the playoffs. So absolutely this team will get there. Yalric says Russ is misunderstood, and that's a sword I'll die on. You're not alone on that, Yalric. There's a lot of folks that do feel that way on it. I don't quite get there as much on it. I think that he's operating, I think, from a pure place. I don't think he's necessarily operating from some greedy, selfish land of things, but I think that he's just kind of misapplied in his direction of things on certain stuff. But I don't have a great feel for what the hell is going on there, and really at the end of the day, to be honest with you. I'm pissed we haven't had retro 80s uniforms and helmet. We need to do it for Sunday or Monday Night Football. Agreed. How cool would it be to do the Thursday night game against the 49ers and unveil it on that night? That'd be cool instead of the magic marker neon greens. I want to see it too, man. I love those uniforms. Randall with the $5 donation. Thank you, Randall. Brando, James Black is a fan of Sweet Megan, so he needs an opportunity to be I'm not going to read that part, Garth. Garth, you spicy tonight, my man? Garth's a little spicy. Oh my gosh. Thank you. And James, you can remember, you can always mute James if you don't, if he's being a little weird. But thank you, Garth, for the donation. And Megan is sweet. Who wouldn't simp for Megan? Who wouldn't? Thank you for the donation, though. Randall McDaniel with the $20 donation. Thank you, Randall. I appreciate the $20 donation. Thank you for all your guys' support to the channel tonight. And as always, I listened to the Columbus interview. He made a point to say he dug deeper into the rumor. Thinking about going to the Raiders game just seems so daunting to go over there. Getting old. You at 10,000 subscribers yet? Well, thank you for the $20 donation, man. I appreciate it on that. And we're getting close. We're edging to it, Brando. We're about, we started out 80 away here at the start of it. So we're moving along ever faster and quicker. And Columbus is taking a pretty strong stand on this for whatever it's worth. I don't have a lot built up to him from a journalistic standpoint or I don't know if, he's maybe just blowing smoke. It's kind of an odd thing and very specific a detail to bring up if he is merely just pulling this out of his ass. If Tyler's just like, oh, let me just make something up to get myself viral on the radio here. I would think instead that there's some kind of, even if it's just a Modichrome, even if it's just a crumbling of a cracker, there is some truth to this and what he's reporting on that, Randall. I have to believe that. And again, it does fall in line with some of the stuff that we know about with, Russell, for instance, again, using the same hand signs he used in the first game of the season that he had used in Seattle. I mean, that does lend exact credence to the exact thing that Tyler Columbus is kind of talking about, isn't it? Yeah, it's tough to get out there. I know, man. Getting out to the West Side is a thing, brother. So it's not crazy there. I will say, fairly well easy in and out from the stadium in there. You don't have the baseball stuff going on at the time, and things do move along pretty well. I think it'll be a good game to go to, though, Randall. Raiders are 0-5 on the road so far this year. So you're talking about a game, and I think they're going into Denver this week. We'll find out if they're going to end up at 0-6 coming into our game on the road. But should be a fun game to go watch. You got the old Raiders matchup, built in there. I mean, and didn't you had an old relative that played for the Raiders too. So I think that's probably what's making you think about going to it too as well. So yeah, man, go check out the Raider game, man. I had a great time going and checking out a game this year. It was cool. Got a little bit of the old sort of the old crowd, magic that we had back in the past there with being as loud as they were. It's good to see. Randall with another $5 donation. Thank you, Randall. Says, I think Mark Rodgers is like a cult leader and scripts Russell Wilson. Well, thank you for the $5. Thank you for all the donations, Randall. And yeah, I think Mark Rodgers' influence on Russell Wilson's been a part of this. And I think he's mentioned him being a kind of a guiding factor like that. I don't think Mark Rodgers, though he's probably been a good agent in getting Russell Wilson all of the best money that he could, all the most money that he could possibly get Russell Wilson. I think it has been at the cost of other things that Mark Rodgers doesn't value. And so then vis-a-vis what Russell Wilson isn't valuing as much. But you can make the argument that that's not going to be what's best at the end of the day for Russell Wilson's career. It might end up making him the most money. It might end up having him walk away with the biggest bank account than he could walk away from in a pro career. But does it provide him with the best complete career as an NFL player in that approach of things? And I think it's a very interesting approach because it's the same thing that you could be applying to the Aaron Rodgers situation and other quarterbacks that have demanded to take up such a high, the Drew Brees situation could have been applied to this a little bit as well. where it's not always the best trek for a quarterback if they're thinking about how they're viewed historically speaking to always look for every last dollar bill and every last deal and let that be the only guiding kind of light to things, which I think it has been a little bit. Scooby Sacks, I like the Jamal trade at the time. We made it, but damn it, he can't stay healthy for us. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's true. Well, Uncle Bully San, Brandon, are we off Miles Murphy already? Not at all, Uncle Bully San. He's one of my higher rated guys. I like Jalen Carter a little bit better, but he's right behind Jalen Carter. I would probably go Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, and Murphy. Uncle Bully San, I mean, what would we trade down to get Will Anderson? We would have to give up our first round pick, and what else? I don't know if we're willing to give up much else, No, I wouldn't want to trade up at all in this, Uncle Bully San. I don't think that's a smart approach at all. And yeah, it costs a first round pick plus to get up there. So probably not worth it. But you might end up in the top 3 status to where you can just go select him and you don't have to trade up to go get him too. So yeah, I don't think Schneider's moving up in a draft, Uncle Bully San. He's never done it in 11 years. I don't think he's going to start now, especially on the success he had last year of not doing that. James Watson says, if we get a top 5 pick, do you see Seattle trading down to get a Jalen Carter or Will Anderson? Trading down, trading up. I don't know about trading. I don't know what you mean by trading down to get Jalen Carter or Will Anderson, because if you get a top 5 pick, you're picking there, James. So James, reword your question if you could for me, please. That doesn't, the way you kind of worded that was weird. I'm not sure what you mean. Adam Fears, Troll and Dolls. Gentlemen, I'm glad we got a top 5 corners. Now this should be a good... Okay, folks, make sure we're writing just double check what we write in the chat, because it's hard when it's kind of all broken up and I can't read what you're saying exactly. You leave out words and stuff and it's kind of tough for me to... I got to like decipher. So try it if you guys can. Just before you hit that send button, just double check you got your words in the right order. If you could. 1 second here. Let me get some more coffee. Daniel W. says, I'd prefer Will Anderson over Jalen Carter. You can find defensive tackles in round 1 through 3. Much harder to find elite defensive end. Not to mention, we have cap space to sign the Commanders' defensive tackle, Laron Payne. I'm okay with going that route, Daniel. And I'm not anti-Will Anderson. I just have a little bit of a preference over Carter at this point. I don't think that he's got quite as refined a game as what I see from Carter where he's at right now. Joe Biden's Make-A-Wish, Rush is going to end up in a mental institution before the season's over with. Up until this season, he thought everyone loved him. If it keeps going in this direction, man, my goodness, it's definitely falling apart for our guy. I don't think he's losing his mind, though. I think that's definitely a gross overstatement by Columbus in that. I think it's just everybody's trying to scramble there in Denver, and everybody's in a panic situation and desperate to try to right the ship, and that's going to cause you to probably do a lot of sometimes crazy things. Jacob Chamberlain says 75%, I'll take it. Hell yeah, brother. Me too, man. I think the data's pretty, and again, remembering that the schedule sets up pretty nicely. Of your 7 games remaining, 3 are teams that are 500 or better. So less than half of the teams you're playing are 500 better on the course of the schedule set up ahead of you. Everything is laid out. It's part of why, Jacob, I put the yellow brick road to this episode. The Lombardis is not just about next season. It's about this season too, as far as the potential goes. We certainly would have to get hot. Things would have to click for us in the right direction. We need things to break in our favor. This certainly doesn't look like a Super Bowl contending team as it necessarily stands, but it's a very good team. It's a team on top of their division. It's a team that I don't think has played their best football yet so far this season. And why not let me say the sky is still the limit from my standpoint of things, even on this given year? I'm getting top 5 quarterback play. I'm getting a great running game. I'm getting solid special teams. I'm getting a defense that, for the most part, is rounding into shape over the last 5 weeks. The last 5 weeks, they've not, I think, given up more than 21 points in a game or something like that. We could easily get better and better as this year goes along. James Watson, Drew Sanders, JL Skinner, Jalen Carter would be great for our defense. These guys could be interesting on that. James, they could be interesting. Not quite as high on Skinner as some are, I think, or Sanders, but I love me Carter. I got to have somebody point me to, I need to, on the Drew Sanders stuff, I'm completely on board with like falling for this guy as far as loving him as a player. You guys got to just point me to what is it the game that I need to go watch with Drew Sanders and turn on the tape for, and it's like, watch this tape of Sanders, and this is where you're going to see why he's going to be awesome in the NFL level. I've watched a couple of his games with Arkansas, and it's just not happened quite yet. Emma21, no one's Seahawks jersey are being burnt. Sorry, I think you're responding to me in the chat there. James, Seattle's going to go with Drew Lock as a future quarterback. Don't see them wanting to pick a QB. It's possible, James. Maybe. Uncle Bully's on the Davis family needs to sell the Raiders. Yes, they do. They do indeed. Right behind probably the Daniel Schneider, as far as the team's buy ownership that probably needs to move on from it. Uncle Bully Sons, damn it, says, I'm one of those guys laughing out loud. I'm hands down a believer that Dave Craig was better than Jim Zorn, and I watched them both play at the stadium growing up. Dave Craig just had a certain thing. Yeah, careful, Uncle Bully son. You're going to hit Megan in a very vulnerable place with this one. And I'm with you, man. I like Zorn and I like Craig, but Craig just, he kind of got you to a little bit of a different level offensively for what he was able to bring and throwing the rock than where Jimmy was. And Zorn was real mobile and was really exciting and fun to play as well at the position because he could move around at a time when no quarterbacks were able to move. But I think Craig was just, you got to give him a bit of that edge there. You got to give him a bit of the edge. Garth Knight with a $5 donation. Thank you, Garth. I appreciate you. It says, at Randall McDaniel, relative was Mark Rogers. Luckily, David Koresh got away from Mark Rogers' teaching. The beginning of Mark Rogers' agency was David Koresh. Thank you, Garth. That's awesome. Randall McDaniel with another $20 donation, Randall. Jesus, my God, my man. Thank you for the double $20 dono from Randall. Hells to the yeah. Says, let's assume the Columbus rumor is true. Is it because Russ is losing it, confused, or that he's not preparing during the week and doesn't know the Denver play calls? Like calling your new girl your old girl's name. So let's assume it's true. Is it because he's losing it, confused, or that he's not preparing during the week and doesn't know the Denver play calls, like calling your own new girl your old girl's name? I've long suspected that with Russ and all that he puts on his plate as far as the busyness by which his life runs and all the irons that he puts in the fire, that it can't help but pull away from his ability to concentrate fully on quarterbacking. I've also pointed out to that being, I think, one of the reasons why you've not seen him from his mental approach of things take steps forward, because to get yourself refined from the quarterback standpoint of it like that, to have those items checked off that have been deficiencies in Russell Wilson's game, it takes what I call, and I'm stealing this from somebody else that was mentioned this, it's called you got to do the lonely work. It's like what Geno Smith has done, Randall. Geno's put in the lonely work. That's why he has such control at the line of scrimmage. That's why he's seeing the blitzes so clear. That's why he has a way to attack blitzes when they come after him. And that's why he's able to change protections and change plays, because he's mastered that element of it, being 10 years in this league. Russell didn't take those same steps forward. He didn't. He still remained reliant on the athleticism and the deep ball to carry the day. And so, in my opinion, as much as anything, his lack of refinement in those finer details to the quarterback position as the physical skill set is eroded is what is most being brought onto bright display. And is that going to then cause him to call plays that are not the right plays? And Maybe. I think as much as anything, and this is just, like I said, this is the momentum that's worked up against him. Even a guy that is as mentally tough as Russ, to deal with the onslaught that he's dealt with this season of the amount of shade thrown his way. Few players have had that much thrown at him in a given time, who have been looked at and viewed so high in such high esteem, to then fall to such the lowest of the lows, almost with such quickness like this. You got to figure, Randall, it can't not but somehow be affecting him mentally a little bit. And I think when you heard Richard Sherman and Marshawn Lynch talk about being worried for the guy, Marshawn saying, I'm worried for the guy, I think that's a little bit of an indicator that they know Russ is a guy that, can maybe be as tough and a forward of a position that he presents. It may not be as tough, behind the scenes mentally and kind of taking this battering. And it has been a battering. He's not just from the old Seattle fans, is nationally getting beat up pretty good for his level of play on the field. So I don't know I don't think he's losing it. I think the Russ is losing his mind thing Columbus said was a little bit of an overstatement and helped to get it a few more clicks to that particular video, kind of to buff up a little bit of the news that he was breaking there, of what he was hearing from inside sources. But I don't think that he probably put in all the work that he needed to put in, Randall, this offseason to learning this playbook of Hackett and understanding how he needed to execute this playbook. I think instead, and you heard this in the offseason, where Hackett and Wilson were coming together, and it was going to be a bit of what Hackett wanted to do with his offense, and then a little bit of what Russell Wilson wanted to do with the offense too, right? It wasn't Hackett being able to run his offense unfettered. It was, no, you need to do stuff that I want to do. I don't care whether or not it fits to the designs of your offense. Randall, I've pointed this back to Schottenheimer back in the day. You brought in Schottenheimer, and then he had to inherit 70% of his playbook. That's ridiculous. You bring in an offensive-minded head coach like Hackett, you need to allow him to instill his offense in full all the way around. But they didn't do that because they thought Russell Wilson was like Peyton Manning. And like Peyton Manning, you bring him in, you have him do the Peyton Manning offense. Or you bring Tom Brady in and you have him run the Tom Brady offense. No, we're not going to run the Bruce Arians offense. We're going to run the Tom Brady offense. Well, you did the same thing here with Russ, only you weren't going to get that same kind of productivity because it's all relying on mobility and big plays. Unlike Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, who their customized offense was about creating easy completions short in space that you could replicate no matter what the personnel was on the offensive side of the ball that you had. You have poor pass protection, doesn't matter as much because I'm getting my quarterback with the ball out of his hands quickly. Whereas Russell's penchant for holding on the ball were only further exacerbated by going to Denver with the poor line that they have. So I appreciate the donation, Randall. But I think that this is more of just too many irons in the fire this offseason with all the moving to new cities and not just spending enough time, in my opinion, just doing that lonely work, which at this point, if Russell wants to tap back into ever being anything close to a quarterback that's going to be looked at as a great quarterback again in this league, he's going to have to solve that element of his game. It cannot just remain in this state of not just disrepair, but not any attention really given to it. And he can just hope to lean back on all the old ever more. He's not going to be able to do that. But unfortunately, I also think this is a little bit too late in the game to start picking this up. Geno didn't bring this to his level over one off season. Geno didn't just go into this off season and I'm just going to 24/7 be all about ball. He's been building this element of his game up over time. It was Phillip Rivers who originally put Geno Smith on the track of how to deal with blitzes and how to read film and how to understand what you're seeing in front of you. And then you build it on there. That's why you just can't hope to make it like a light switch that I'm bad at this one day, but I'll be great at this the next day. No, it takes a lot more work than that. And it's tough work. It's boring work. It's not the kind of work you can put on an Instagram page. Wayne says, does Brandon have a Save Our Sonics channel? I'm a subscriber number 1. If we ever get a Sonics team, Dwayne, you can, I promise you, I will have a Sonics channel. So if we get them back, and we're supposed to be getting them back at some point, you better well believe I will for sure be bringing them in. 100%. Big Country says, Wayne, the NFC West will be tough. The Niners schedule looks easy. I think the Niners have a track to getting it. That's for sure, Big Country. I think we could still get in the playoffs even if the Niners got the NFC. But I do think, to your point on that, Big Country, it's going to come down to how we play them in that Thursday night game. Much like we saw a couple of years ago at the end of the season, a game at home against the Niners dictating whether or not we were going to get the division or not. I think you'll see a very similar thing this year with that Thursday night game that's going to be coming up. Sam the Great says, watching hoops isn't the same anymore. I have a hard time with it too, man. I have a hard time to have being kind of connection to it, knowing they took our Sonics. And I was a big basketball fan. We got a good Thursday night game. There we go. Seahawks country, I don't think Broncos will give us a top 3 pick, though probably not Seahawks country, but I think the 7th pick, top 10 pick is completely feasible. And Wayne, you have every right to be bitter about them taking our team. I've been in the same place. I'm not going to support you when you take our team from us. And it's like, you took our team from us not because we were bad fans, but because you let a greasy, dirty slime ball owner enter into the league and pull the team away to some small ass market that had no business having an NBA team. That it was all the way around the world dirty on that one. And I'm bitter about it too, man. You have every right to be. Uncle Boy said, Uncle Boy saying, you're going deep down the rabbit hole there with Megan. You start getting into the Zim Zorn, Largent, Dave Craig, love triangle. Oh, Lordy. Henry M., should we have signed Ndamukong Suh or Linval Joseph? No, I don't think we're in. I think Suh could have helped out this line. I think he's better than Quentin Jefferson, for instance, at this point, but I don't think he's hugely so. And no, I think it's okay with just riding with what we got at this point. On both accounts. Herbicide says, what do you think Geno learned from Russ? I think some of the scrambling out the back door of the pocket, keeping plays alive, keeping your head up while you're keeping plays alive. I think some of that he picked up. I don't think Geno had as much of the improvisation that we've seen at times. I still don't think it's I don't think it's like as natural as is to Russ in that element. There are times to where Geno completely can not have a feel for what's going on in the pocket around him at times, and he gets surprised for sacks because of it, especially when he gets a little bit too long to holding the ball and sitting for too long in the pocket. But overall, I think the keeping plays alive and not just getting into a panic mode of, okay, my reads aren't there, now I need to scramble. I think this especially stands out to me, Herbicide, on some of those throws you've seen him make over the course of the year where he breaks the pocket, looks like he's coming up the line of scrimmage, looks like he's just about to cross the line of scrimmage, and at the last second he'll throw a pass. And he's done it a couple of times to some really big plays. You had the Disley touchdown in the first game of the season, the Broncos, where he did that very same move. This last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you saw it, where he steps up in the pocket on that Lockett touchdown. That's exactly that kind of play. You're just moving up and around, keeping the play alive, and then don't give up on the play just because you've left the pocket. That'd be my guess. Garth Knight with another $5 donation. Thank you, Garth, for all your donations on the channel tonight, my man. You are awesome. Says Brando, I'm going to pretend you are from a different country and a lady fan. A lady fan. What it'll say is, enjoy Bobby Wagner's success in LA and GFY. I don't know what's GFY. What it'll say is, enjoy Bobby Wagner's success. Pretend you're from a different country and a lady fan. What I'll say is, enjoy Bobby Wagner's LA and GFY. Garth, you drunk, man. I do not know what that means. GFY. I'm bad with acronyms, man. I'm too old for acronyms. Acronym. What's GFY? Go F yourself. You'll have to put that in the chat on what you mean on that one, Garth. I'm not sure on that one. Wayne says, seriously, how long are Brandon's streams? I have a short attention span. We'll be wrapping it up here soon, Wayne. I usually go easily 4, 5, 6 hours, but I want to do these a little bit shorter, which we'll do today here. Uncle Boys, that's right, Uncle Boys saying, I got that stamina, man. Uncle Boy says, yeah, Pete wanted Russ to do hard stuff like read through his progressions, laughing out loud. I think that definitely was, I think that's definitely been a big part of why they did move on here, is that they lost trust that Russ was going to get these aspects of his game cleaned up. And, the thing for Russ to clean these aspects of his game up, he's got to admit that they're problems or that they're limitations right now as his game currently stands. I don't think Russ has had that come to Jesus moment yet, even as bad as this has gotten, to really own that. As I always say, though, for those folks that are pro Russ, that would like to still see him find success, even if it's on another team, because you are a fan of him, he has a pathway to get back there. But it does take this level of ownership of the problem to do so. And that's something that he's been hesitant to do so. If go listen to Russell, when he does tend to typically talk about things that are negatives to his game, he always then does a but. It's always, yeah, I probably held on the ball too long, but sometimes big plays happen out of me holding the ball too long. Where there's a lack of fully owning the problem at hand. It's always kind of covered up by the fact of it went bad this time, but it'll be going great the next time. And that's not what needs to happen for him at this point with where his game is at, in my opinion. Sijan says, B is like Doc Holliday. He can go on and on. That's right. I'm in my prime. Just going into my prime. Uncle Boy saying, is there a Cam Chancellor type defensive back out there in this draft, though? Or like Trenton Simpson, isn't he kind of a hybrid linebacker defensive back? Simpson's more of a hybrid. Simpson's more like, your Julian Peterson type, right? Or he's probably going to be picked in the teens, and a lot of his selection is going to be driven by comparisons to a guy like Micah Parsons. He's not quite as big. He's not at the same level of freakish talent that Parsons is, but teams are going to look at it in the same way. I can use him as linebacker. I can use him as a pass rusher. He can stand up as an outside linebacker. He's more in that frame of things. People are mentioning Skinner out of Boise State, Uncle Bully's son. I've got some worries and concerns with him playing coverage and whether he's going to hold up at the NFL level in that respect of things. But he absolutely has some Cam Chancellor like ability to hit. Like when he hits guys, he hits them with some absolute ferocity. And what he does really nice that I like is, unlike Marquise Blair when he was coming out, Skinner's not a headhunter. So he knows how to take his head out of it and still lay a really solid shot. And that stood out to me. So maybe that guy would be the one I could say so far in the film I've watched that gets kind of into that nature. There's nobody though that's 6'4" and, just that physically intimidating as Cam was. Not to that degree. Uncle Blake saying, Brando, you need a Cortez Kennedy jersey up there also. I agree, man. We're going to be due this year, I think, for adding another jersey behind me. So maybe we'll have to take a poll on that. But I think Tez would be a great potential addition behind me on that stance of things. So good suggestion, man. I might go get one of those. Wayne says, would anyone trade Geno for Russ straight up? Not me. No, I wouldn't at this point. I definitely wouldn't. You're seeing an eroding skill set. There's no doubt about it. Trey Dean III is also a big safety too from Florida. I'll add him to my list. Trey Dean. It's got kind of an enforcer name to him on that. Trey Dean. Herbicides, Russ, and more picks maybe. And who's their safety? Justin Simmons. So Russ, some picks, and Justin Simmons for Geno Smith. Oh, Lordy. Yeah, I'm not moving him. Emmett 21 says another thing that Geno learned from Russ is to play smart, not dumb. Yeah. He's certainly doing a lot of the things that are the opposite in the direction of how Russ played the position too. I mean, maybe there's something to say for that, where he sees Russ holding on the ball in a given play, and he's like, see, I just need to go. He should have just gone to his first read. Like, why do you hold that ball? The first read was right there. You see that happen a couple dozen, 3 dozen, 4 dozen times over the course of a couple seasons. It probably really does reinforce that point pretty significantly. Hawks fan says, I hope we either get Miles Murphy or Brian Brees. I like both those guys, Hawks fan. Does seem like Brees has been a little slow to come back off that injury he had, but his earlier tape from prior years was really impressive. I like Miles Murphy a little bit better than him, but both are very good players. Uncle Bully said, I like all of them. Will Anderson, Miles Murphy, Trent Simpson. I mean, if we end up with any of those three guys, I'm not going to be complaining. I'm only going to be effusive in my praise of our front office for making those selections. No doubt about it. Jose Rodriguez, Garth donated to a Broncos channel. 27-17 Titans, 5 minutes left. There we go. Megan says, no triangle B. You know the two have my heart B. Hawks fan Ika would be perfect fit in this defense as a nose tackle. He would be good. He would be good, Hawks fan. I watched some tape on him. Very lot quicker for a man his size should be. You know, he's really a big zero tech, but he moves really well. And if you're gonna make a selection for one of those guys, and you're gonna make a high selection for one of those guys, you want the guy that's gonna be rolling out there 330, 340, 350, but then he moves like a guy who's 300 pounds. And that is probably a little bit of what you could apply to Saiki. Emmett says, I always get frustrated with Russ every single time he got sacked, but now with Geno, it's different. 100%, no doubt. Same. There are very few sacks that Geno's taken this year that I've really been that pissed off about, where, you know, it's just, okay, maybe he's holding the ball a little too long in the pocket, but it's not him making a stupid decision or him usually doing something outright where you're like, what the hell were you thinking on that play? You know, maybe the fumble last week was as close as we could really come to a play like that, but even that wasn't a passing play per se. Sal Zero says you might also like Christian Young from Arizona, big safety, 6'3", 200, and boy, well, there's your Cam Chancellor then. Jeez Louise. Christian Young. I got him down on my list, man. I got him on my list. I'll take a look at him. 5th round projection. Well, that was where Cam went, man. We'll take a look at him, though. I want to get into all these guys. My goal this year is to get to 300. That's my magic. Last year, I got to 240. Scouted out all the guys down to 240. This year, I want to get to 300. Go Ox 2022 says, agree on that. Those 3 players, be very happy with any of them. Yeah, man. I mean, those guys would only help our team out. I don't have any real worries about him. Even with Will Anderson being a little rough in his technique, he's still going to be a productive player in the NFL. Whether he reaches star status or not is kind of really the question with him, but I do think he's going to be a productive player. You know, he might slide into being just a Josh Allen type with the Jaguars, but that would still help this team if that's what you go and get. Uncle Boy's son, yes, laugh it out loud, Brando. I was very respectful, and I watched my step when speaking to Megan about Zorn. I can attest. I was in person with her, and we started to bring up this debate, and her eyes got very narrow when she looked at me, and it said, let's not go any further into the subject. Eric Ritchie says, Geno don't cook, he Uber Eats. There you go. There you go. Why make it when you can have it delivered? Uncle Ollie's son says, my man Geno's a hard worker. He don't need to cook. He's one of those dudes that skips lunch at work so he can get his work done and bounce. That's right. He's all about the ketosis, man. He just eats in 6-hour time frames of the day to be more efficient. Emma21 says, one more thing about Russ. If the Broncos were desperate to get rid of him, then why not trade a pair of socks for him? Laughing out loud. You're not the amount of dead money that they're sitting on the hook for over the next 2 years does not give them even a chance to think about that as a process. They are stuck with Russ for the next 2 seasons at least. That's the problem with signing him to that monster contract extension, is that you would half your salary cap by trying to move off from him here. And it doesn't get much better the year after that. It's like, it wouldn't work. Just wouldn't work. They're stuck. They're stuck in the mud up to their thighs, and it's drying like cement. Zero, I already see Will Anderson being as effective as Von Miller, more raw, but he has the mold to be like Von. I can see it there with him. I can see it. I mean, certainly the quickness, first step quickness, bend, while still bringing some good size to the table. That is certainly parts of his game where when that jumps off the tape of you, where it's undeniable. There's nobody as quick as him coming off the edge in this draft, and maybe not even last year's draft, quite frankly. But the refinement just isn't there for me at all with him. It's going to be a long way to go in that respective thing. Still like him, though. Still think he's going to be productive. Still think he's going to be productive initially. Joe Biden's make a wish. Am I the only one that thought it looked like Geno tossed the ball into the air on that fumble? I think he just got caught in between a couple different thoughts at once. That might have been it. I'm not sure. It just looked awkward all the way around. Uncle Bully saying you got number one beast mode, Warner, Waters, John L. Williams. After that, Strong, then Robinson. You're missing Chris Warren on that. We got no Sean Alexander on there either. Oh my goodness. Wayne, I would trade for Sierra before Russ at this point. Megan says Gino ain't eating Subway either. No, he ain't. You know he ain't. Certainly not eating it with his eyes closed or whatever Russ was doing in that commercial. Yeah, Subway is nasty. Back in the day it was good, but boy, has it gotten... All right. Well, we've gotten here now to the end of the chat here. I think we got all caught up on this one. I'm going to kind of do this just a little bit quicker here. I say quicker show as we were almost 3.5 hours into this one. But we are going to kind of wrap this up here as I want to kind of make these a little shorter when we go so I can do more of these shows. I will be back on Sunday. And I'm not sure of what time Sunday we'll be doing this here on the channel. It might be 1, it might be 5. But I will be on this Sundays. We'll be talking a little bit more about the Seahawks here in this upcoming year. Please do me a favor, folks, and hit that like button if you've not already done so. I really would appreciate it. It would help me out considerably to do so. So please hit that. We're on the road to 10,000 subscribers here as well. So if you're not subscribed, please do get subscribed here to the channel as I'm trying to get over that 10,000 mark. I'm so close. You could be the one. You could be the one to push us over that 10,000 mark by subscribing today here to the channel. I really do appreciate you guys here in the chat as well. Just always keeping it kind and respectful in there. Garth Knight, Randall McDaniel, thank you for all of the donations from your end of it. I really appreciate it. Megan Gock, Roger, Osama Ben Diesel, Robbie Red, Ender, Osama Ben Diesel, Kevin Mullen. You guys are amazing. And thank you again, all the double donation folks and putting all you guys do in the channel. I really do appreciate that support. It's part of that support you guys have been able to do in those donations that's helping me this year get out some more videos, get out some more content as we have grown, because the more I can make off the channel, the less work I got to do on the outside, the more I can put in. So you guys are tangibly, just want to say on those folks that do put to this channel, it tangibly goes to me being able to create more content and put even more time into being able to do this channel. And I want to thank you for being able to do that this year. I've been able to get a little more work out. Every year we increase a little bit more with the videos we're able to push out. So thank you guys, all of that in that respect of things. You guys are amazing in that respect. You guys are always amazing, unfailingly amazing in that respect of things. Skizik, Tom Brady could have been a running back behind that line Alexander had. That's true. It was a very good line, Skizik. I can't doubt you there. It was a good one. He had a lot of help. He did have a lot of help. He's a good back too, though. There was a reason he was a first round pick originally as well. But there has never been a more decorated fullback than John L. Williams for our team. That's correct. He's the best fullback in our history, man. And we've actually got a history of some decent fullbacks having run through here. You mentioned Max Strong, and a couple guys have come through, but he is. Michael Robinson was okay for us for a couple years. Wasn't amazing, but he was solid, good. But John L. was the best. He was the best. Kind of nice. The Packers are beating the Titans. That is good to see. Megan Gock, Roger, thank you for holding things down here in the chat on my subscribers. Jose Rodriguez, appreciate you jumping on here as well. He says Packers lose. So the day gets a little bit better for us in that respect. We want the Packers to lose. We want the pathway to open up for us as far as the wild card if we are not able to get the top of the division. So this is an important game for the Packers to fall in this circumstance. Emmett21, appreciate you, man. Very bad look for Jar Alexander. Did he get beat at the end? Oh, goodness. Look out. Uncle Boy saying you have a good night. Michael Myers, have a good night. Joe Biden's Make-A-Wish. And just like that, the Seahawks have one less team to worry about in the playoffs. That's right. Packers moving out. One less team for us to look at. And let's remember, this NFC is wide open, not just from the standpoint of us being able to take this division, but wide open from who is going to be the playoff teams and where they're going to come from. Tampa Bay is barely at a 500 record, leading their division. You look over the NFC North, you've got obviously the Minnesota Vikings running away with that division, but the Bears aren't very good. Obviously, the Packers are having the down year, and Detroit is Detroit. And NFC West, it doesn't get a whole hell of a lot better, though you do have the Cowboys over there. But there is a very clear pathway here to getting into the wild card if we can't go get the division title. And this loss definitely helps us just a little bit further, a little bit closer to getting there. Uncle Boy says, okay, B, it sucked. My list sucked. I totally forgot Chris Warren, and I forgot to put Sean Alexander on there too. My listing days are done for today. I'll just show Uncle Bully Santa just shows you how deep a prestigious history of running backs we have here in Seattle. That's what it shows. Not all teams have that kind of thing that they can fall back on. So we've had a lot of good guys come through here who have been very productive at the position, and kind of unusually so, I think, versus other teams over this 40, 50 year period that we've kind of ran. You've had literally an MVP at the running back position, which you don't very much see very often anywhere across the board on that. Zowzero says, Cowboys historically chokes with us too. Ask Romo. They do. Yeah, they don't want to see us in the playoffs. They don't want to see us in the playoffs. Yeah, the Sexbot's got to come and say hi right at the end on that one. Just got it right at the end. I appreciate you folks for, again, hitting that like button, and as always, keeping the chat so amazingly lively. You guys keep me always thinking and having fun with this. I will be back tomorrow we'll be back on Sunday for the channel. I will also be tomorrow over on my Crow's Nest channel. So if you're not subscribed and you're a baseball fan, I do Mariners coverage, and we're going to be talking about some of their signing trades here tomorrow at 3 o'clock Pacific Standard Time over on the Crow's Nest. So please pop over there if you're looking to catch some action there. We'll be on for a couple hours talking some baseball, and we can talk a little football over there too if you guys want that time. But I will be back here on Sunday as we will be covering the live action, kind of seeing how this, maybe do the Niners win, the Niners lose? Are we able to remain atop the division with alone, or are they going to be sitting there right next to us, and that Thursday night game is going to loom and prove to be really where the great decider on who wins the NFC West will maybe come down to that particular game. The thumbnail on this video and the title of this has been the yellow brick road, has been the golden road that is ahead of you and paved ahead of you here to go back and get to the Lombardi trophy. The hard work has been done. You got the assets back for an aging quarterback that was more than anybody could have imagined when we look at where he's at right now. You have money to spend moving into the future. You have a young nucleus that has stars and superstar leanings in it and everything in between within it. And they're under cheap club control moving into the future. The hard work has really been done at this point. Now they just got to stay on that road. It'll wind, it'll go up and down. It'll sometimes go through some darkened forests, but they are on the road now. That is for sure. And sometimes that's just the hardest part for a team, to get to that point of out of rebuild, out of in between, to get to the ascent status. Your Seattle Seahawks are ascending as we speak. When and where they get to that elite status to truly be in a Super Bowl contender, does it happen this year? Does it take to next year? Does it take the year after? We'll see. But they are on that path, and that should encourage you. That should get you hyped. That should get you dreaming large. Dream big, my fellow Seahawks fans. I don't care if this is a bonus. I don't care if nobody saw this year coming. I don't care. We're here now. We're atop this division. This season is at our grasp. So let's go get it. Let's dream big. Let's look towards that Lombardi trophy, and let's know that we are on the pathway to getting back there sooner than later. And that should make all of you very, very encouraged for what's to come for our Seahawks now and into next season and the seasons beyond. My name is Brandon King. This is the Hawks Nest. I do appreciate you guys watching. Please like, please subscribe. But don't you ever forget. Shouldn't have to remind you right now as we sit atop in the division, the toughest division in the National Football League. But I'm going to do it anyway because I always got to do it. And that's don't you ever, ever forget. Go Hawks.